Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the July 5th, 2022 closed session. Madam City Clerk, would you be kind enough as to read the public how to participate?
Thank you, Mayor. The public can attend this meeting in person, or they can view it on our government cable channels or at fullerton.legistar.com. If they want to make public comment, they can do that via Zoom, either by joining the Zoom online or calling 1-669-900-9128, and the Zoom meeting ID is 978-4219-1797, and more detailed instructions are available on the agenda.
Madam City Clerk, would you be kind enough as to call the roll?
Mayor Jung.
Present.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
Councilmember Zara.
Here.
And Member Tim Whitaker and Councilmember Dunlap are not yet present.
We will now hear public comment on closed session items. If there's members of the public that wish to make comment on any items in the closed session, please feel free to do so. Seeing none in chambers, we'll go to Zoom.
There are no attendees in Zoom.
Very well. We'll recess into closed session. Good afternoon, everyone. I call the July 5th, 2022 meeting to order. Madam City Clerk, would you let the public know how to participate?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's meeting is accessible in person or online at fullerton.legistar.com or on any of our government cable channels. If the public would like to make public comment, they can do it so here in the meeting, or they can do it over Zoom at zoom.us/join or call 1-669-900-9128. The Zoom meeting ID number is 978-4219-1797. All that and more information is on the agenda.
Thank you for that. Madam City Clerk, would you be kind enough as to call the roll this evening?
Councilmember Jung.
Present.
I'm sorry, Mayor Jung. That's why that sounded wrong. Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Here.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Here.
Councilmember Zara.
Here.
And I believe Councilmember Silva is somewhere in the vicinity.
I trust he is. This evening's invocation will be given by Fullerton Police Chaplain Charles Frost. Mr. Frost, would you be so kind, sir? Good evening.
My Father, we come before you seeking your wisdom in the leaders of our community. Give them the wisdom to lead us the way you would have them led. We ask protection for our first responders, Father God, as they guard us from the world around us. I ask you, Lord God, that you bless this meeting. We thank you for the opportunity to be here as free Americans participating in a free government. We love you, Lord, with all our heart and our soul and our mind. Bless these proceedings. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Mr. Frost, if you don't mind, just tell us the spiritual well-being of our department.
I hear your voice, but I don't know which. I can't see your lips move. Oh, Mayor, okay.
One in the middle, sir.
Well, the police department and the fire department are in good shape. They're spiritually strong, they're dedicated, and they're determined to do the service that they were called to do. And I'm really honored to be a part of that organization. So to give a report on their spiritual fitness before God, they're spiritually strong.
It's good to know, sir. Thank you very much for all your good work.
Thank you.
Good evening. The Pledge of Allegiance this evening, if I can ask Councilmember Dunlap to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise. Hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask our city attorney. Sir, do you have any closed session reports?
There's no report this evening.
And we'll move on to ex parte communications. If any members of our council have had any ex parte communications, please report them now.
I received a text message and brief reply from Dan Lancaster of the Firefighters Association.
Very good. Any other reports?
Same thing. I've received a text from him just informing me.
And I did as well. We do have a presentation this evening, an exciting one. We relish these kinds of things on council. It's Fullerton High School's baseball team. And I'm going to give the floor to Councilmember Dunlap, who's got a few words he'd like to say on the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're going to have the team join us in a minute, but I wanted to make sure that we first give proper recognition to this team on all their accomplishments this year. I'm actually pleased to share a write-up by none other than Indian alumni or Fullerton Union High School alumnus Dave Jerome, who is also known as Mr. Bucket List, and who is a really wonderful Fullerton baseball historian. I'm going to share his write-up on kind of the season and the team, and then we'll have you all join us down below to take some photos and present certifications, assuming those are here on hand. Awesome. All righty. So the Fullerton Union High School Indians shared the 2022 Freeway League title with Sunny Hills High School and received a number 2 seed in the CIF playoffs due to their head-to-head matchup against the Lancers. The Indians opened the CIF playoffs with home wins against St. Margaret's High School with a 7-2 victory and 5th-seeded Tequitz High School of Hemet with a 9-3 victory. The Tribe then traveled to Corona for the quarterfinals, where they defeated 4th-seeded Santiago High School 14-9. On May 17th, the Indians traveled to San Bernardino for the semifinals against Aquinas High School. The Falcons were the top seed in the Division IV playoffs and on a 13-game winning streak. Despite being down early, the Indians fought back to defeat Aquinas 6-4 and advanced to the CIF championship game for the first time in 40 years. For those little not so good at math, that's 1982. Going into the championship game, Fullerton Union High School junior catcher Nate Norman was batting .422 with team highs of 38 hits and 13 doubles. Junior right fielder Connor Sunderland had 5 home runs and 27 RBIs. Senior pitcher Sebastian Fani has pitched a team-high 52 and a third innings, and junior pitcher Kyle Kim had a 1.67 ERA. For non-baseball fans, those are great numbers. Despite being the visiting team, the championship game was practically a home game for the Indians, being held at Cal State Fullerton's Goodwin Field on Saturday, May 21st. That was actually a great game. I was fortunate to attend. This is color commentary on my part, but it was a very gritty game. The team played well and unfortunately did not pull off the victory. But prior to the game, Fullerton High School alumnus and current Anaheim Angels pitcher Michael Lorenzen addressed the team and visited the dugout to give them a pep talk. "Do me proud," he reportedly told them. Later that night, Lorenzen would go on to start for the Angels against the Oakland Athletics, throwing 6 scoreless innings and earning a victory himself. But Fullerton Union High School faced the Tesoro Titans from San Juan Capistrano for the title. The Titans started senior right-handed pitcher Colton Dahl, who was 6'2" with a 1.64 ERA. And Fullerton Union High School started senior righty EJ Ayala for only the 3rd time of the season. The Indians had a scoring opportunity in the top of the first with 2 runners on base, but couldn't get either in. Tesoro then took an early lead, pushing across 1 run in the bottom of the inning. The game remained a 1-0 nail-biter until the bottom of the 6th, when Tesoro tacked on 2 more insurance runs. The Indians went down in order in the 7th, and the Titans dogpiled on the mound. Ayala pitched 5 innings, giving up just 3 hits and 1 run, but was the hardback loser since his teammates were shut out. Dahl pitched 6 shutout innings, striking out 11 Indians and earning the win. Despite being shut out, Fullerton had several scoring opportunities, but Dahl always seemed to get a strikeout when he needed it. "We had them on the ropes a few times, but we couldn't get that big hit," said Fullerton High School coach Sean Hill. The following weekend, the Indians were invited to Anaheim Stadium by Michael Lorenzen to watch the Angels' pregame warm-ups. Lorenzen talked to the Tribe team about their upcoming appearance in the CIF state tournament. On May 31st at Fullerton High School, they played Mar Vista High School from Imperial Beach in the opening round of Southern California Regional Division IV playoffs, winning that game 4-2. On June 2nd, the Indians hosted Burroughs High School, the CIF Division V champions. Fullerton High School was down twice during the game, but fought back for a 10-6 win, powered by home runs from both Kyle Kim and Connor Sunderland. "I knew we could do it. We showed great teamwork," said Fullerton High School catcher Nate Norman, who led the Freeway League in batting average and home runs and was voted the league's MVP. Fullerton High School advanced to the finals on Saturday, June 4th for a rematch against Tesoro High School on their home field. It was a fitting way for the season to end with number 1 Tesoro facing number 2 Fullerton High School for the regional title. The Indians jumped out to a 2-0 lead but couldn't hold on, losing ultimately 6-4. Tesoro added the CIF Regional Championship to their resume, while the Indians had to settle for the runners-up. But the Indians and Principal Rubio posted on Facebook after the game, "It was a tough loss, but one amazing season. This is the best baseball season and best baseball team Fullerton has had in decades." So the Fullerton High School Indians finished their 2022 season with a 26-9 record and 2 CIF runner-up trophies. Junior catcher Nate Norman was voted to the Orange County Register as All-County Second Team. Kyle Kim and Nate Norman were voted on to the 2022 All-CIF Southern Section Division IV baseball team. And this team is really worthy of a huge round of applause and accolades, I think, from across Fullerton. So please join me. And team, if you could please join us down front. We're going to take some pictures. And so, yeah, coaches, players, we'll see you up front.
And as you guys come up, I do want to congratulate all the young players and the coaches as well. Having coached before at a different sport, and the parents, and thank the parents for your commitment. Nate Norman's my neighbor, and I've seen his parents, all the time and effort they put into it.
Hey, great season. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Let's go down. Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I used to do basketball, so it's a little different, but it's.
All right, here we go.
A shake line here.
Handshake line, there you go. All right, so first we have actually for head coach Sean Hill.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations again, coach. Yeah. Hey, this is actually brilliant coordination because I think at least we're 2 for 2 so far, to use a baseball term. So we have assistant coach Ruben Montoya. Not here. Okay. Can we give that to you, coach? Or? Awesome. We have assistant coach Andrew Camacho. Awesome. Appreciate it. Assistant coach Bishop Griggs. Not here. Okay. Drake Harris.
He's here. Very care.
All right, here we go. Round of applause. Congrats.
Thank you.
There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Not here? Okay, gotcha. All right, set Crail. Okay, Jacob Crail.
Way to go, Jacob.
Congratulations. All right, next is Damon Garcia.
Not here.
Not here? Okay, there you go. All right.
Not here.
Not here? Okay.
Oh, this is easier.
Not here.
Thankfully, the coach is here.
Yeah, but not here. Here.
Here? Okay, Kyle Kim.
Congrats, Kyle. Thank you.
So what's the money pitch?
Slider.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Not here.
Were you not on that Little League World Series championship team?
All right. Nate Norman.
And here you go. And then before you leave, I do want to get a picture of you because
Way to go,
are your
Nate.
parents here?
No, they're not here.
Well, here, let me get a picture of you then because he needs one because he's my neighbor.
Okay.
Neighbor.
Wait, he needs one or you need one? Did I hear that right? Awesome. Congratulations. There you go. Here?
Yep.
All right, a fellow Greek, Yorgos Papadatos, or George Papadatos.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Matthew Kim.
Way to go, Matthew.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Hold on, young man. One more. Here you go. All right.
Yep.
Okay. Eric Reyes.
Eric, way to go.
Congrats. Oh, certificate. Connor Sunderland.
Congratulations, Carl.
Congrats, Connor.
Congrats. There
Usually we're
you
pretty
go.
good at shaking hands.
There you
We did a
go.
lot
Up.
of that.
Certificate. Here you go. Jeremy Maldonado.
Way to go, Jeremy.
Congratulations. Okay. Nicholas Savage.
Congrats, Nick.
Congrats. Not here? Okay. Okay. Luke Galvan.
Way to go, Luke.
Congratulations. Matthew Carbajal.
Matthew, way to go.
Congratulations. Make sure I pronounce that. Fanny, okay. Sebastian Fanny.
His brother's the next. Congrats.
Gotcha.
That's not here.
Okay. Oh, his brother's not here? Okay. Oh, there you go. All right. Yeah, you take it. There you go. All right. Okay. Moses de la Cruz.
Way to go, Moses.
Congrats. There you go. He's not here? Okay. Arturo Hernandez. Congrats.
You got one.
All right. Carlos Barrios.
Way to go, Carlos.
Congrats. Yeah. Did we, you know what, we might have doubled one up. Did we,
John Bedell's here.
John Bedell's here? Okay, gotcha.
The other one was Coach Tim.
Oh, gotcha, okay. And John Bedell.
Coach Tim. Way to go, John.
Gotcha, okay. There you go, congrats.
Well, let's get
We,
everybody up.
yeah, we may not have one for Coach Tim, but we will make sure that you are recognized along with the other winners here, along with the team, right? So,
Coach Tim.
Coach Tim, that's Coach Tim, please. Absolutely, absolutely.
Principal Rubio, come on out. Guys, come up right here. I know, you're gonna be in one. We're gonna line it up, and we're gonna take a big old group picture, and since you guys are all taller, we're gonna have to get in front.
Yeah.
Around the
Yeah.
side, let's squeeze them in.
I do like Councilman.
Get up there, Mayor, get up there. Come on. I'm next to the mayor. Why don't we put you and the coach next to the mayor up front? Okay. I seen all your pictures. You always get them.
I'm okay. You want me? I can stand right here. I'm tall enough.
You're tall enough. I will be. That's okay. All right, we'll go sideways. I think so.
I'm on my tippy.
How are you?
There you are. All right. I'm gonna jump next to this guy right here. We're not gonna get everyone in, but we'll try.
I'm on my tippy toes.
Good. All right, congratulations.
Thank you guys so much,
Keep up the great work.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you again for having us. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Congrats again. Keep
Thank
it
you. Appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Love watching you guys
Yeah.
play.
We should have another good year, so we'll see how it goes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great thing. Younger team like that. I mean,
Yeah.
bringing a lot of guys
Oh yeah,
back
a lot of
and stuff.
returners, so it
Yeah,
should be
that's
fun.
awesome. That's
They're going to move us up a higher division, which is probably going to be really tough for us, but it's going to
yeah.
be a fun challenge
Yeah.
to compete with all those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We have to play a lot of D1 teams this year and beat a couple of them. So
That's
it's-
awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it's a lot of fun. Good group of kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing like it.
Yeah. It's always fun on a baseball field when you're winning.
Yeah. You know, bad day on the baseball field beats a good day at the office.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
100%. 100%.
We're gonna go into the
yeah. Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks you so much. Huh?
Tesoro's team name was unfortunate for Fullerton, right?
Certainly was, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Things like that are a council amenity. We certainly are grateful and relish these kinds of things. So thank you to the Mayor Pro Tem and everybody on council for joining me and doing that. Public comments are next on the list. Those of our public that wish to make public comments, please line up to your left, my right. And we'll start with Mr. Harrison. Good evening, sir.
Evening. My name is Todd Harrison, and I am one of the endangered residents of the Rancho La Paz Mobile Home Park. Hello again, Mr. Mayor and council members. Tonight, I'm asking you to put a discussion on the July 19th agenda. The council needs to consider amending the instructions to those lobbying the state legislature on behalf of Fullerton. I'll lay out the issue for you and explain as well as I can in my allotted time the what and why. When John Saunders first bought Rancho La Paz and told the residents he was going to start with a 60% rent increase, we came to both Anaheim and Fullerton city councils for help. Anaheim, as has now become clear, was already paid off by Saunders, so gave us an immediate hostile reception. Fullerton at least was willing to listen and do the very limited best it could. Granted, out of ignorance, fear, and a lack of regard for Fullerton seniors, little was actually done. In the end, Fullerton's help was to give the lowest income seniors a limited amount of federal grant money that went into Mr. Saunders' pockets. Ultimately, we were able to get some effective help at the state level with the passing of AB 978. This brought Rancho La Paz effective anti-predatory rent increase limits. The bill our governor signed was limited, using essentially a mapping trick so that it only applied to Rancho La Paz and left every other mobile home park homeowner still without protection. Saunders has sued the state in federal court because of this targeted bill. If Saunders' suit succeeds, all the limits on his assault on the residents come off. There's a large effort underway right now to have a new bill widen the protection to other mobile home parks. Our state legislators and governor are receiving thousands of messages to make this work. Saunders and the other vultures like him are fighting this effort with lots of paid lobbying and political donations. If the residents of just one other mobile home park in California gain protection, Saunders' suit is dead in the water, and we in the Fullerton portion of Rancho La Paz will be safe from his double-digit percentage rent increases. Since the city was unable to do much for the residents of Rancho La Paz, Fullerton should be lobbying at the state level to protect Fullerton seniors. My question to you all is simple. Will you help us? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Package. Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Jung and members of the City Council. My name is Tony Paxton, and I live in Fullerton for 18 years. And I must comment on how shoddy, unprofessional, and lack of courtesy you have shown to the public regarding the encroachment at 100 Commonwealth. After the Planning Commission decided the CUP was not valid, this council set up a meeting to vote, then at the last moment postponed for legal discussion, then you did it again at the last moment before the regular items were ready. Both times, members of the public, Fullerton public, were here to discuss it. That shows blatant lack of concern for the public who arranged their schedules to be in here. Not a good performance by you, and maybe shows you don't care about our input. Am I wrong? But the encroachment is only one piece of the issue. During construction, they placed 2 towers on the harbor sidewalk. But did they have a CUP? These towers obscure foot traffic for car people trying to make a right-hand turn from westbound Commonwealth on the northbound harbor. Just think of the dangers of a car trying to make a right turn on red. Their eyes are on the traffic from the left, looking for a gap in traffic. Once they perceive a gap, they make a quick look to the right and start turning. Uh-oh, I didn't see that person. This intersection will have a fatal accident very soon, and the city and this city council will be liable since you let this happen, knowing the dangers. How will they know? I will testify about this meeting in their court the next and on the next one where you vote on some crazy deal your city attorney has made to a powerful rich man. Having seen the deals this city attorney has cooked up in my 18 years, I fear for the worst, because that is all he is capable of delivering. I'm warning you that your personal decisions can have consequences. Has any of you seen the towers on the harbor and tried to make a right-hand turn? I doubt it. Personal liability, it's there, and you are guilty.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Maureen, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, dear. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here tonight. I would like to pull number 7 and pull number 9. Also, when I was at the Fullerton Transportation Center, I'm sorry I don't remember the dock numbers, but it's the north and south dock going towards the train station. Someone authorized a very, very dangerous, very expensive crosswalk from the end of the dock to the west side of the bus lane. These are cobblestones, polished cobblestones that are not level with the street, but they are above street level, and the navigation is unbelievable. And the cost of this, if you use this on every crosswalk, it is going to be so dangerous. And I had one miserable time navigating across. It's not level with the street. As I say, it's raised, polished cobblestone style brick. And I'd like to know who authorized it, and I don't want to see another crosswalk like that again, or I will take it under advisement because it is just too dangerous. The crosswalks should be level with the street, not above the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
That's too tall. There we go. Hello, Council. I'm going to talk a little bit about item number 6. I don't expect you to pull it, and I saw the protocol change. So I'm just curious. It looks like California Highway Patrol has a $500,000 grant, and I don't really care if Fullerton takes it or not, but I do think it's interesting that, I mean, obviously you'll vote to approve it, otherwise it wouldn't be on the consent calendar where you'd want to talk about it. But it's been 5.5 years since Prop 64 was passed. 5.5 years. The Civil War was decided in less amount of time. We still don't have an ordinance for legalized marijuana dispensaries in this city. 3 of you have been mayor in that time. What's taking so long? 5.5 years. You have no problem with the stick. You're going to give the police department $500,000 for DUI checkpoints, largely salaries and pensions to beat people with. I don't mean that literally, Chief. I mean just, use. But nobody can legally operate in the city of Fullerton. June 22nd, I just looked at the Planning Commission. Planning Commission was going over an issue where somebody's in violation of city ordinances, of the municipal code. Because council has abdicated their authority and abdicated their role as leaders of the community to enact the will of the community. Hey, look, voters passed Prop 64. Even local voters, by mass, passed Prop 64. What's taking so long? Now, I know how the sausage is made. I know why. I know which developers are involved. I know who writes the emails. I know all of that. But you might want to show the people of Fullerton that you actually care about the will of the voters and solve this problem. It's not going to happen. You have no problem taking money to enforce things, but you can't find the willpower to allow people to comply with the law. The illegal dispensaries have been here longer than Prop 64 has been legal, and they're going to continue to proliferate. I used to work somewhere where a guy had weed delivered to the shop. I don't even like marijuana. Most pot smokers annoy me to no end. But give them a chance to follow the law. Just maybe try. It's only been 5.5 years. Think you can figure it out before another 5.5 passes? Cheers.
Next speaker. Mr. Gamble, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Curtis Gamble, activist for the homeless and the veterans. Today, I want to share with you what I always share with you. I'm trying to get some response. I don't know, it don't seem to be working, but I'm going to read my speech again. But before I read it, because I know it's kind of the same thing, but before I read it, I just want to say today is July the 5th, 2022. 11 years ago, Kelly Thomas was murdered by the Fullerton police officers. We've come a long ways, and not just Fullerton community. We talking about all over the United States, all over the world. We've accomplished, even though there's been a lot of negative things still happening, but a lot of positive things have happened because of what occurred here in Fullerton. So I just wanted to remember that day and say, Kelly Thomas, rest in peace. Okay. Now, again, this evening, I would like to share with you my thoughts on the Fullerton homeless and veterans community. The Cash App card is free. It's a free customizable Visa debit card which allows the Fullerton homeless and veterans to pay for goods such as rent, apartments, hotel rooms, car vehicle homes, RV homes, ADU, accessory dwelling homes, tiny shelter homes, shipping container homes, Airbnb homes, parking spaces home, safe parking programs. The Cash App card can also be used anywhere Visa is accepted, online and in stores. Through the Cash App Visa card, the homeless and veterans can send and receive funding directly from family, friends, and the city, and or the Hope Center in Fullerton. I'll cut this short, well, this part, but every time I go to dinner with the homeless people in the evening, this is what they are telling me that they need. They want, as a matter of fact, they want their funding. We've gotten altogether probably up to $10 million in funding. Fullerton, we have a buy right zone for the emergency shelters. We have buy right for the accessory dwelling units. And now we should have a buy right for the funding, because the state law and federal laws have taken that ability away from you guys, because you always just sit there when I speak or when other activists speak in other city councils. That's it? Okay. Thank you.
Next speaker. While we're waiting on Mr. Cho, we'll go to Zoom. Is there anybody on the Zoom platform?
We
that
have
wishes
one
to
hand
speak?
raised in Zoom.
Let's take that Zoom caller, please.
Kayla, you should be able to unmute.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Kayla Sato. I just wanted to talk about agenda items 11, 12, and 13. Looking at the calendar screen, I would hesitate to approve the major site plan on
Kayla, when those items come up, you're welcome to make comment. This is just public comment on non-agendized items, please.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cho, good evening.
Hello, my name is Bernard, and I am a Fullerton resident. Mr. Chung, at the last meeting, you claimed that those who criticize you are somehow gaslighting you, and that it's a sign of narcissism. But do you not see the hypocrisy in your statement? We literally watched you spend the last 2 years attacking council members Cesara and Silva. Go after our faithful and dedicated employees impulsively effectively fired a city manager and plunged our city into chaos, blocked people from speaking by changing council hours, and disrespect people who speak at public comment, often interrupting them with condescending remarks. The guests you bring, such as chair of MWD last time, offered no real information other than praising you, something that you seem to crave and seek often. And somehow, we the people are gaslighting you. You think you're not accountable because developer Tony Bushala and his blog seem to protect you. Even the Fullerton Observer doesn't offer any critique of you. Is it because it's now co-owned by Jane Rand's husband, and Jane works for your campaign as treasurer? This is all public record and not just my opinion. I hope people see you for what you are, a self-serving politician who is using our Korean community to prop up a political career. It's my First Amendment right to say this. Your gaslighting people will not stop me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Sir?
If anybody else would like to speak, please line up at the mic so we make sure we don't miss you.
My name is Steve Boone. I lived here for 45 years in Fullerton. I just have a real quick question. I can't get an answer from anybody. We had a trash strike in December, and I've been waiting on every bill since December for a credit from we had 1 week's missed service. So it's only $6, but if you take 4,000 homes, $6 adds up. I want to know who's got the money and why we don't get a credit. It's very simple, just to type it in there. One credit for 1 week's service, but you keep kicking it around. I just wondered if it's legal fees you're after. Is that why it's taken so long? You're going to get legal fees up to satisfy somebody. Where's my $6? That's all I got. Nobody wants to answer it because I've called a dozen times. Nobody will give me an answer.
We'll try to get you one tonight. Thank you. Go ahead. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Kurt Johnston. I would like to give an update on the bike lane on Wilshire. It seems to work a lot better. There's a open area that's kind of a shared space for pedestrians and bicyclists, and I like that. I would like to know the status on the encroachment on Harbor and Commonwealth. That's been left a lot of people wondering what's going on with that. And also I'd like to have an update on whether we're supposed to have the water turned off on the drinking fountains in Fullerton. So far all the fountains are turned off at the train station, and the Fullerton Marketplace fountain is turned off, and there's not always access to the restrooms, so it's nice sometimes to have a little bit of water somewhere in the city for certain people that don't carry bottled water. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Good evening. My name is Z.J. Hahn. I became introduced to Fullerton when I moved here in 1978. Good evening to the Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Zara, Councilman Silva, Councilman Dunlop. I, too, did not have my garbage picked up in December, but I missed 2 weeks. I've been asking for $11.75 because if someone doesn't show up for work at my business, we don't pay them. If you come to work, then you get paid. So I'm looking for an answer also. I've written letters to where I send my payment every 2 months, and I'm asking for my refund of $11.75. Hopefully, the City Council takes this seriously. They address a longtime resident for just a simple service I pay for. I pay my water bill, I get water. But when the trash isn't picked up, I don't know how I'm charged for something that doesn't get done. Thank you very much, and I wish you prudent decision-making.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments in chambers, we'll go back to council on this. Staff, Mr. City Manager, can you give an update on where we're at with Republic on the non-pickups?
Yeah, yes. Mayor Jung and city council members, the trash bill that they're talking about has to do with Republic. Republic has not settled with the city regarding that missed service. There are contractual issues regarding strikes and whether they have to refund residents. We're still trying to work through those issues with Republic. We haven't come to resolution yet. I understand the residents' frustrations. Other cities that are also serviced by Republic at the same time, I think one city had a contractual provision where there was a small refund provided. Other cities were not by Republic, but we are here in Fullerton still trying to resolve that issue. It hasn't been resolved yet. We're still trying to resolve it contractually with Republic.
Very good. Anything else, sir?
Yes, on the water fountains, I did check on those on the train station. I thought that one water fountain was turned back on. There has been vandalism and other problems that have been reported to us on the other water fountains. That's why they've stayed off, because in talking to the transit station, they've asked that we keep them off because of certain issues that have been occurring with those water fountains. But we had tried to keep one on. I will double check to see if that one water fountain is still on. And then finally, I think that is it. That is all at this time.
All right,
Thank you.
very good, sir. And then I am going to ask the city attorney to update Mr. Package's question on the development at Commonwealth and Harbor. Sir, what we
Yes.
can anyhow.
The negotiations are ongoing. The city council has given us direction to resolve that issue by having the encroachment removed from the property at no cost to the city. We do have some tentative agreement and acknowledgement by Mr. Marovich regarding that issue, but other issues remain. The city manager is negotiating directly with Mr. Marovich. Mr. Marovich has been out of the country and overseas and just returned in the last day or so, and now his attorney is gone. However, those small issues are trying to be resolved, but the overall goal of the council to have that removed at no cost to the city remains our focus and intent.
Very good, sir. All right, so we will go to staff reports.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before you go on.
Councilman.
A couple of things. I would like to pull items 7 and 9. I know Ms. Milton had requested that, and I actually had some questions about them too, so I'd like to pull those. I also want to know if Mr. Levitt could look into the cobblestone crosswalk that Ms. Milton had asked about. Thank you.
All right, very well. Councilmember Silva, any staff reports or any council reports, sir, this evening?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to see if we could get an update or a briefing on what we're doing in trying to secure the Hunt Library. I know there's been a lot of vandalism there, and we heard this before, but I was wondering if we could bring something back that kind of addresses that. What are we going to do between now and then when it opens, and in order to stop people from breaking those windows? So if we can do that, whether it be a memo or an email or something back, Chief, City Manager, I appreciate that. So that's one. And then the other on the Hunt is I know we were going to go out for an RFP to negotiate with a vendor to take over the buildings and the operations, and we put it up for the month. But I would like to suggest and ask that if those negotiations break off with Heritage and I think it's Arts OC, if we can look at some local agencies in town that in the beginning were interested in working with the Hunt or running it, and that would be the school district, all the arts for all the kids, and the Library Foundation and the city. So if things fall apart with those other two vendors, I'd like to see if we can create a Fullerton-based group that would allow us to open and operate the refurbished building and library. So that's one. And then also on the homeless situation, I know that we've got enough, well, I would think we have capacity in terms of beds, so when we go out and enforce our ordinances, we can enforce them. So I'd like to see where we're at with that. And I know that when we enforce the no camping ordinance, it's a ticket and they're out again. But I still see a number of homeless people out there, which I know they don't have a place to go, but we have done a lot to accommodate them, to provide them a bed. And some of them are refusing to take that bed. So I like to maybe look at a little more assertive approach to helping some of these individuals find a bed and moving along for a positive, for a better change. So if we can do that, and then lastly, to the marijuana ordinance, we did have an ordinance for legalizing marijuana for about 3 months, and then it got rescinded. So hopefully we'll bring it back sooner than later, and with that. I think on the Hunt Library of negotiating with the new group, if negotiations fall apart, would I need a second for that? Would we need to, or can it just be an informational piece to be brought back? How would I make sure that gets brought back to us?
I was going to bring up this issue as well, but I had a slight twist on it. At our next meeting, I'd like to receive a detailed report because the public is asking many questions. And if we could get an update as an agenda item, I would certainly second that.
I would agree to that. And also on the notion of maybe negotiating with a Fullerton-based group if the other negotiations fall through. Should we agendize that as well? Or
I think we could talk about it during the agendized item at the next meeting, where we can get that into as well. We can get into that discussion.
Well,
I don't know that it requires a separate agenda, sir.
Well, would it be better? What would be to ensure that we get this?
If you want to be assured that it's going to be on the discussion, I would include it in the motion or the request.
That's fine. I would second that.
I would second, yeah. I would like that as well then.
Very well. Staff has direction, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Dunlap, anything, sir?
Yeah, I would just like to add and congratulate that we actually have there are 4 teams remaining in the District 56 Little League Championships. This is, of course, 4 Golden Hill teams, I believe ages 10 through 12 or 13, so we're very excited for them and wish them all the best in the weeks ahead as that tournament endures.
Very good, sir. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, anything, sir?
Pretty much covered it with that.
I want to say very quickly, I want to express my deepest thanks to my friend and our state senator, Josh Newman, for his leadership, and our Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk-Silva for her leadership. That a newly approved state budget has $6 million for our navigation center, $8 million for the North Orange County Safety Collaborative, which our very own Police Chief Robert Dunn leads, allowing our staff to enforce our laws and assisting getting people off the street and into wraparound services that Councilman Silva was talking about. Another $28.5 million for the acquisition of Coyote Hills to preserve open space for generations to come. The humble resolve of our 2 state representatives is a lesson in leadership. Their openness and authenticity continues to pay dividends for Fullerton and its many residents and businesses, so I want to thank them personally. We will move on. I know we have a scheduled appointment on the agenda, but Councilmember Dunlap will appoint someone to that committee or board at a later time. So we will go to the consent calendar, where Councilmember Zara has pulled number 7 and item number 9.
I'd move the
would
balance.
seek a motion for the balance. Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Very well. If council is okay, we'll do 7 and 9 at the end, like we usually do these days. And on to the public hearing item. This is an appeal of approval of major site plan at 1201 1223 South State College Boulevard. It's the Goodman Logistics Center in Fullerton. So first, we're going to have a brief presentation from staff, I believe. Who is making that presentation this evening?
Mayor, as part of the presentation, our brand-new senior planner, Edgardo Calderon, said probably wrong, is going to make the presentation. And sitting to his left is our brand-new planning manager, Chris Schaefer.
Welcome to both of you.
First
Good
day,
evening
and
to
he's
both.
in front of you already.
Fantastic. Please.
And it's Caldera.
Thank you for that, Kelly. Okay, well, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This is a request to appeal and approval by the Planning Commission for a major site plan for a property located at 1201 South State College. So the subject site is generally located on the west side of State College Boulevard, 285 feet north of Orangethorpe Avenue, and is zoned Manufacturing General Emergency Shelter Overlay. The property is bordered by the Goodman Logistics Center project site to the north and west, and industrially zoned properties to the east and the south. So just a little background on the project. The applicant Goodman requested a major site plan to develop overflow parking for the previously approved Goodman Logistics Center Fullerton project. The proposed project meets all applicable development standards and the use is permitted by right in the zone. The project is an expansion of the previously approved GLC Fullerton project, which has a certified environmental impact report, and an addenda to the final EIR was prepared for the truck trailer yard expansion. The addenda concluded that the project would not result in any new significant environmental effects requiring major revisions to the EIR, and the mitigations in place from the final EIR continue to be feasible and would adequately address the proposed impacts, any potential impacts that the project might have. And next, the requested major site plan was considered by the Planning Commission on May 11th, 2022, and was unanimously approved on that day. So subsequently, an appeal was filed by a member of the public. So the request this evening is to review and act on an appeal of an approval by the Planning Commission for a major site plan to construct this trailer truck yard on property zone Manufacturing General. So Fullerton Municipal Code authorizes the City Council to act on an appeal request and also authorizes the City Council to review and act on a major site plan request. And just an overview on the project. The project proposes, again, to develop overflow truck trailer parking for the previously approved Goodman Logistics Center project. Highlighted on the slide, the project site was not part of the previously approved project and is located on the south of and adjacent to Building 4. Essentially, the project involves construction of surface parking. It would include 34 tractor-trailer parking stalls. The existing southerly driveway would provide egress along South State College. And also note that the Planning Commission approved the project with 2 additional conditions of approval, which essentially require the project to, number 1, close the existing driveway on the north side of the property, and number 2, that the remaining driveway may be used for egress only. And based on the findings and facts contained in the resolution, staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution to deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's approval of a major site plan. And with that, I could answer any questions the council might have. We also have the applicant present this evening, Blair Dahl from Goodman, as well as the environmental consultant for the project, Tina Anderson.
All right, thank you. Before we get into any questions from council and staff, we do have the applicant here. I'm happy to allot the applicant 5 minutes if he'd like, as well as the appeal. Ms. Reifer is allowed 5 minutes as well, so when they come up to speak, please make sure that we have that accordingly, 5 minutes. Any questions from council?
Yeah, I've got a question for Mr. Caldera there.
Sir.
Yes.
On this new parking side, is it going to be trucks will come in, they'll leave them there overnight or for the day, or are they going to be idling, waiting for storage? What's the use, I guess, of it?
So the use is storage for just the truck trailer containers, not the actual truck, so there wouldn't be any idling there.
Okay.
There's state law that prohibits more idling for more than 5 minutes, so that's included as a mitigation measure.
So on that side, just to have it clear, they would come in, drop off the trailer, and then the cabin would leave and...
Correct, and the applicant could elaborate a little bit more on how that would be used.
And then another question, maybe the applicant can share, but so you said there's a state law they could only idle for 5 minutes?
Correct. There's a state law that prohibits more than 5 minute idling, and I believe it's also part of the mitigation measures for the EIR.
So what I found out today, and maybe you can add some light, is if they have cold storage, those trucks can idle for a longer period of times if they're dropping off or picking up cold storage items. Is that accurate?
There is cold storage approved as part of the main project, but it would happen inside the building warehouses.
Okay, so the trucks wouldn't be idling extra because they've got to keep their
Correct.
items cold. Okay.
They would not.
All right.
All right.
That's it.
Any other questions from council members? All right. Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and I'm going to invite the applicant to share his thoughts. Mr. Dahl, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Young and City Council. I'm Blair Dahl with Goodman, and we, as you can see, are moving along really quickly with construction and working really well with staff, and just want to thank you for that. Staff has been, just super to work with. On this item, I don't. There isn't a lot to say. Basically, it's extra parking. It's a the area on this 1.3 acres will function just like the truck courts, so it'll be a gated area, secured, and if looks like we have a large user that's going to take two of the buildings, the two biggest buildings, and then they'll utilize this one as well. So just gives them a little room, a little accordion space to store some additional trailers. To answer your question, Councilman Silva, our customer who will be in Building 1, which is the building on Acacia, has refrigerated space, and what those refrigerated trucks have an auxiliary cooling unit on them. So when they're driving, the diesel engine powers the cooling unit. It keeps the produce or whatever it is cool. And then they have electrical plug-ins at the doors, and they can plug that auxiliary cooling unit in so that the diesel can be shut off. And that is part of the state regs. It's AQMD regulations. It's 5 minutes, I believe, is the max idling time, and it is one of the conditions in the EIR. So we took a very conservative approach with the EIR addendum, and we studied all you could study, but you really can't create any new impacts when you don't have a building. So this is essentially just extra storage. If you have any other questions, happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
So just to clarify then, when those refrigerated trucks come in, none of them will idle for more than 5 minutes because they'll have the electrical hookup available to them.
There are going to be auxiliary plugs at all the dock doors for that. I don't have control over it, but that is the state regulation. The customer is planning for that, so we're going to have outlets wired and ready to go for that purpose.
Well, and so if you don't have, so it'll be just, I guess, the owner or the owner of that warehouse will be the one they'll be responsible.
We're the owner, and then our tenants,
your tenants
operate their business, and this just happens to be a grocery chain.
Yeah.
And so they are responsible for that. I might add this group is actually adding infrastructure so that they can operate electric trucks out of the facility. So their logistics partner is a big, well-known company, and part of being able to run electric tractors is having the charging infrastructure. So we're putting that in, so that's where the world's headed. I think in 10 years the issue of diesel will be a lot less of an impact with electric trucks.
Very good, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to take time too much, but I'd like to know a little bit, maybe you can elaborate on the mitigation factor. I think one of the main concerns here is air quality.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give the public a little bit about what you're doing to help mitigate any poor air quality that may result?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of layers to it. And what we studied when we did the initial EIR, when you do a big project like this, you compare what was there with what you're going to build. And then you look at, truck traffic and those emissions and the noise and all the stuff, all the impacts. And you compare that to the biggest paper factory that existed on the West Coast. Massive water user, massive electricity user. So it had a lot of emissions. Not as many trucks, but a lot of emissions driven by transporting the water and creating the electric power, that sort of thing. So we analyze that. When we analyze that in the big EIR for the big project, those impacts, the impacts of our project are much less for greenhouse gas emissions, for air quality, for noise than the old paper factory. So that's how we go about it. On this particular item that we're talking about, since there's no building, there's no additional trip generation, there's no additional impacts. There were some things in the appellant's letter which are just not true. We have a whole bunch of mitigation measures on a project like this. We have to hire a paleontologist. She's out there doing all the grading. She gives instruction to the grading contractors. Any excavations below 8 feet, she's there. We paid her $30,000. She does a report at the end. We didn't come across, any impacts. She mentioned the DTSC, and this is a known contaminated site. We're a big public company. We won't take that risk. If there's any chance of or any suspicion that something's contaminated, we haul it off. So we take all those precautions. We're trying to be good corporate citizens. I might add that we're also we're going to 100% mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions that were created in the manufacture of all the concrete, all the steel, all the fuel used, and that's part of our global effort to be good corporate citizens.
All right. Thank you for that. We'll ask the appellant now, Ms. Reifer. You're afforded your 5 minutes. Good evening, Ms. Reifer.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to appeal portions of this project. First thing I would like to say is I am pro-industrial. A little known fact about me is about 18 years ago I came to the Planning Commission because they had a housing element. I think it was the first recent one they were approving after the new general plan was updated. And in it include a very small, apparently insignificant paragraph saying that all industrial zoning would be now have an overlay with housing, which of course would make it more valuable for housing and would have really caused a big problem for anyone who wanted to have industrial. So I wanted to make sure that people know that I fight for industrial when I can, but I also think that we can have industrial without pollution. And if one of the problems with the original Goodman project is that, oh my gosh, I almost don't know where to start, is that if you want to have mitigations for air pollution, please don't just rely on Goodman or any other company that will be coming forward. Please just have that already in your requirements. Or please just, for instance, if they say there aren't going to be idling for more than 5 minutes, make sure that's one of your requirements so you can track it instead of just relying on the possibility that it will have good neighbors who will follow through. So let's see, where can I start? As you know, these projects are in a disadvantaged neighborhood that already has a massive amount. I think you might have this already. That has a massive amount of air pollution already, and these just add to it. It's funny that Mr. Dahl mentioned that there's much less pollution from this project, but that's because there's actually more pollution than Kimberly-Clark had. But what they're doing is they're taking their massive pollution and they're subtracting the Kimberly-Clark pollution and coming up with a net, which unsurprisingly is less. So that's how that. And if you would like me to go through the documentation on that, I'd be happy to do that. But it's a kind of a complicated issue. But that is how it looks that Goodman does not have a massively polluting project. There are going to be over 3,500 trips per day, which is about 3,000 more than there were through Kimberly-Clark. That includes 904 daily truck trips. The modeling, oddly enough, even though 50% is for cold storage, the modeling didn't show 50% of the refrigerated trucks. They go into that. I would like to see if the council could impose 5 mitigations and some new ways of dealing with these kinds of projects, and also offer a few examples. One of the things I would like to do with new projects is about 5 days before this was heard at Planning Commission, the buildings were demolished, despite the fact that there was pending CEQA documentation. And if we had known properly, then I might have known ahead of time that they did have a paleontologist hired, and that they were doing the recycling that they're required to do, and so forth. But there's no way to tell that with the kind of documentation the city had. It was just, there were going to be requirements for doing all these things, and then the building was demolished without having these things be approved. So if you can see what the dilemma is there for a person who's trying to find out what's going on, not knowing if it's actually being followed or not. I want to mention 2 major things that I noticed about this project, and that is that there's something called vehicle miles traveled, which is now the new way they assess whether there's an environmental impact, and there's a major error that happened, which is that this whole large project was based on, when you have this piece of paper, it's number 131, it's a transportation, analysis zone. And if you have a low VMT, TAZ, transportation analysis zone, you can basically shoehorn your project in. But you're really supposed to shoehorn it in if you're an office or residential, in an office or residential area. The guidelines say nothing about industrial. So, but this was kind of shoehorned in. But then it turns out that if you look on the back of that, it clearly shows it's a high VMT area. So unfortunately, this whole project was predicated on the fact that it was low VMT, and it's not. This is something that I was just made aware of recently, was able to obtain a map, and was able to actually check, and it turns out it's high VMT area. The other thing I'm really concerned about is that this truck route goes around 2 elementary schools. I'd be happy to answer questions. It's hard to, it's a very complex project, and it's hard to get it all in one.
Understood. Let's see if the appellant has any questions to answer from council. Any council members with questions for the appellant?
May I also pass around the truck route, which shows that there was a miscalculation.
Of course.
On where the elementary schools are. Clearly within the truck route, it was not studied.
Understood. We'll now hear public comments on this item. If there are any members of the public that wish to comment, please go ahead and do so. Line up to your left, my right. Mr. Package, good evening, sir.
Good evening again. First, Mr. Jung, thank you very much for asking the attorney to explain that. I do appreciate that. That was a very kind gesture on your part. So, thank you. Okay. I live around that area on Acacia and Commonwealth. I've been watching this project build up. It's huge. It's going to have an impact on our environment. It's going to have an impact on our roads. It's going to have an impact on our lives. And as Jane was talking about, there's 2 schools around here. I'm already seeing traffic that's going through. Trailers are coming through, the big rigs coming through on Commonwealth and everything. Now, you always got to remember one thing. There's going to be, when you talk about traffic, there's traffic coming in, which is going to be big trailers, and there's traffic going out, which is going to be deliveries. And it's just going to be a mess in that area, and we're very concerned. We're going to the school boards, and we're going to talk to them about letting them know how bad this is for them. So we have to get a grasp on this and get a control of this before it gets bigger, because it's going to be a future mess for the whole city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gamble, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Curtis Gamble, activist for the homeless and the veterans. I'd just like to share something real quick. The Goodman Center, I think, this project is a great project. Overall, it's going to offer jobs to the community. So many young people around. So I think it's great. It's kind of what all our residents want. You know, they want this type of opportunity, and I'll tell you why. Because first of all, it's in our emergency shelter, SB2 industrial by right emergency zone for shelters, and that's the number one thing in our community is that the community wants all the homeless to be in a certain area, and that is the area. So they want Goodman here. You know, I'm just showing you that point, Mr. Councilman Czar. Now, moving right along, you know, this particular building number 4, it holds 140 cars, and it's got 34 parking spaces for what I would say RV parking, which is a major problem that we have right here in Fullerton, not to mention Orange County. As a matter of fact, if we have to be prepared, if they don't lease the building out as quick as they want to, we're prepared to lease that building. The county is basically looking for a safe parking program because it's needed. And then, again, I want to share this with you. It's 180,000 square feet building that's located right next to this parking location. Also, it's 500 feet away from the schools, parks, and residents. Years ago, I did a 3-year lawsuit with the on behalf of getting this zone correct, so that this whatever organization came in here, it would be welcome. We did this. It was a 3-year lawsuit that I did every day. I remember that long. But so this area is that's what it's for. It's for, again, emergency shelters for any industrial, even for the weed thing that everybody's talking about. I watch you guys spend a lot of time with that. And when this industrial area, I'm not saying Goodman Center, but the whole industrial area, that's where weed shops and stuff's supposed to go, 500 feet away from schools, parks, and residents. And another thing, this is a 24-hour location, and that's what we really need for the young people. Instead of being down here town Fullerton drinking, go to work. It's a lot of jobs compared to the 375 jobs that used to be there. Another thing is right across the street from the OCTA building where I worked for 14 years as a bus driver. OCTA bus drivers, let me just say, they need RV parking, safe parking program. So this is an excellent location. Thank you.
Thank you.
I approve this project.
Any, while we're waiting on Ms. Milton, any comments on Zoom?
We do have one hand raised.
Let's take that comment, please.
Kayla, you should be able to unmute.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Yeah, so Kayla Sato with Orange County Environmental Justice, one of the county's only environmental justice organizations. Thank you, Member for redistricting. Just wanted to say that I completely understand the need for like jobs in our community and everything. But when you consider some of the air quality in this part of the city, it's in the 100th air pollution burden percentile. And that's kind of unacceptable to add to it anymore. I know that the EIR had determined that it won't add substantially to it and this and that and this and that. But if you're expanding the zone that it's going to be around to two elementary schools in an already air pollution burdened part of the city, that's kind of unacceptable, especially when they're elementary schools. This district is already incredibly low income, and we shouldn't be hurting the community any more than we already are. Some years ago, we decommissioned oil wells on the north side of the city, and we absolutely should have done that. However, why are we throwing the low income and renter communities under the bus by expanding these sources of air pollution? As much as I am in favor of like jobs and having places to park buses and everything, this kind of is not okay. This is really bad and really, really concerns me. Looking over the EIR, looking over the article, looking over the attachments and everything, this is really concerning to me, and I urge the council to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Milton, good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the time to speak. I have one question. You talk about the trailers parking. Where are the tractors going to park? The tractors have to park somewhere because the tractor can't move out of the area, out of the facility without a tractor. So are the tractors going to have to come in off-site, or are they going to park on-site? Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments in chambers, we are going to go ahead and bring this back to council. I'll ask council members if they have any questions for our staff or to the applicant. Councilman Zara.
I just wanted to get a little bit from maybe staff about the truck routes in that area. I know that there are restrictions on Commonwealth, or restrictions up in some of the residential or close to residential. Could we just get a clarification on this, please?
Yes, I believe truck routes there. That's something mainly that Public Works deals with, but I believe those are basically extensive truck routes around there, and that the EIR took all that into consideration for the traffic impacts.
We'll go ahead and save your answer. We have Director McWade from Public Works here. On your first evening, we're not going to torture you accordingly.
Thank you.
Director McWade, good evening.
Thank you. There are designated truck routes in that area. Right now, what we're looking at is additional signage in order to make sure the truckers are aware of exactly where those routes exist. But they were part of the analysis when we looked at the traffic implications.
Right, and that was my understanding, and they don't go all the way up to where the schools are, right?
I'd have to look at the map. I know I looked at it recently when we were talking about the signage, but I don't recall.
Okay. All right, very well. Any other questions, sir?
So just, oh, sorry.
Well, I do have just another follow-up question.
Sure.
The trucks that we're talking about, this is a parking area. So my understanding is these trucks are going to come here no matter what. It's just a matter, are we going to find a place to park their trailers? So this is not, whether this is approved or not, this is not going to stop the trucks from coming. Am I correct? It's just we're not going to find a place for them to put their trailers.
That's correct. Basically, my understanding is that a lot of those containers get moved by, I believe, what they call mules. So it's like a small truck trailer. I'm not sure if it's diesel power or power, but that does a lot of the moving of the containers on site. So regardless of whether the actual truck trailers stay on, the trucks stay on site or not.
Right. Okay. Any other questions, sir?
No, thank you.
Very well. Councilman Silva.
No, I was just going to ask, were the schools taken into account when this study was done? I know that there's been some comment that they may not have been because of the distance. So did we properly take into account the distance between the facility and schools around there?
Yes, we did. As part of the EIR consultant actually did look at the schools, the impacts, the distance. So they were considered.
Anything further, sir? All right. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any? Ms. Ryford, one moment. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Nothing at
anything, sir?
present, no.
Okay, very good. Councilman Dunlap? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing, and we'll bring this back to council for any kind of movement. Further discussion. Any further questions or comments from council members? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd like to, if I may, Mr. Mayor, could we bring back an item on truck routes in those areas?
You certainly can.
And see if we can have for the public, see what we can do also to, because I know that I received quite a bit of complaints in the past from erroneous, random trucks passing by some residential, finding some sort of shortcut to get through to some of the businesses up on Raymond and Chapman and so on. So maybe we can bring back an item to study these and see if there's ways that we can enforce or improve the truck route so they don't have those access.
So I'm happy to support that if you have the caveat of truck routes throughout the city, not just in that area. I'd
Yeah,
like to see the
certainly.
whole city.
Absolutely.
Very good,
Let's
sir.
do it.
Let's do that.
And then as far as this, I think that there's certainly pollution in the area. I'd like to consider also that we do have the 91 freeway passing through there. There are a lot of businesses. This is an industrial site, industrial area that is very, very large. So there's no doubt some air pollution. This is something I've talked about in the past. I know we try to push for some mitigation factors like doing our urban forest plan and plant. And I think we made a motion to plant more trees there. What I'd like to see us bring back is maybe see what other cities are doing to improve air quality in their cities, and especially in areas that are a disadvantage, to look at maybe what federal grants or state grants are available for that. In this particular instance, I'm not seeing any. This is not going to stop this project from happening. This is going to provide just parking. I don't see this being a major contributor from what I've studied. I do appreciate Ms. Reifer's input and analysis. It brings a lot of important information to the public knowledge, and then hopefully we can start looking at other solutions. But I don't see this as being something that is going to change any of the current existing situations. So I will make the motion for staff recommendations.
Very well, sir. Is there a second? All right, very good.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to put a comment
Sure.
out here.
Please.
I've received some complaints recently about idling trains and idling train cars for days and weeks on end in the heart of Fullerton. And we have less direct control over railroads, certainly, than some of what we're discussing here. I do want to say that whenever an appeal is made, I like to hear fairly detailed responses, and this has been mostly broad stroke responses. So I too have no interest in preventing this project, but I do think that there are a number of issues with which we should be concerned. So I am not really supportive of proceeding at this point myself.
I see. So, well, we do have a motion. We do have a second. Are there any other comments? Councilmember.
Yeah, I'll just say that, having it been clear that this is going to be just a parking to drop off the trailers there, and they're not going to be idling, and they're not going to be waiting to be unloaded or reloaded. I think it's needed, and it's not going to impact this project, so I'll be approving it or moving forward with it.
Very good. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Abstain.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-0 and 1.
Okay, the regular business item that we have is inclusionary housing information. This is an item that was requested by Councilmembers Zara and Silva. And we have a presentation that's going to be made by Director Fritzl. How are you? Good evening again.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. As you stated, this was a request from Councilmember Zara and Silva at the May 17th meeting, asking staff to bring back information regarding inclusionary housing for discussion. In general, inclusionary zoning is a policy tool that requires or encourages private developers to include a percentage of affordable units that are below market rate, create off-site affordable units, or pay an in-lieu fee. The benefits of the program is that it assists the city in meeting the regional housing allocation need numbers, especially the affordable housing requirement. Inclusionary policies work to capture some of the value of rising real estate prices to provide community benefits through local land use policies to mandate developers to build affordable housing units alongside their market rate units on limited supply of developable land. However, inclusionary ordinance pass the cost of affordable units onto the developers without significant incentives. It could actually negatively impact investors and developers' profits, and opponents will argue it decreases housing production overall and raises market rate rents. Each program is created to meet the needs of the community. So the cities of Brea, Huntington Beach, Irvine, La Habra, Santa Ana, and San Clemente have numerous versions and different caveats of inclusionary housing. If the City Council desires to initiate an inclusionary housing ordinance, the first step would be to determine the program desired, in lieu fees, percentage of units, off-site productions of units, or land donation for the city to build housing. In addition, a fiscal analysis would need to be completed to determine in lieu fees, etc. Staff is here to answer any questions.
All right, very well. We'll go ahead and hear public comments on this item first before we get to questions from council. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment? Ms. Reifer, good evening.
Good evening again. I'm happy to see this item on tonight's agenda. It was brought up at Planning Commission when the housing element came up a few months ago. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to support this because they're really looking at a little bit ahead of view at what's going to happen with all the housing that is supposed to be built in Fullerton. And they're realizing, in fact, Chair Cox said something kind of funny, and I hope I can capture this. He said something like, we'll have, in order to build the amount of affordable that we need, if we're not building affordable every time we have a housing project, instead of building the 13,209 that we have to build, it's going to be something like 160,000 in order to be able to get that number in. So inclusionary housing will help. It won't solve the problem, but it'll help substantially. And I would like to suggest that it not be studied for moderate and above, but only for the lower levels of income. Also, I want to say that I've spoken with quite a few developers, and every single one of them tells me that there are plenty of incentives already. And if a city says you will have inclusionary housing, they'll do it. They have not been asked in Fullerton to do that. Other cities are already including it. We're not going to be an early adopter. We're not going to price ourselves out of the housing, out of the being a desirable location. I think this is all positive, although we, again, will have to come up with some other solutions as well, because this is not the final opportunity to make sure we get affordable housing that we are being mandated to build. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Cho.
Hello, my name is Bernard, and I am a Fullerton resident. Thank you, Council Members Zara and Silva, for bringing this up. I hope this council approves inclusionary housing so we can have more low-income and affordable housing. Mr. Young, you claim to support low-income residents. Well, this is your chance to actually support our community with real solutions, not just empty words or a photo op in the Woodcrest neighborhood. Mr. Whitaker, I won't even waste my breath on you. You never support your own low-income district, so why bother? Our community is struggling with housing costs. It's time to help us. Go Bruins.
Thank you. Any commenters on Zoom while we're waiting on Mr. Ferguson?
We have one hand raised in Zoom.
Let's go ahead and take that comment, please.
Kayla, you should be able to unmute.
Awesome. I assume that you can hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. I also just want to make sure. So I know that Fullerton is a city with many renters, and we even had people from Rancho La Paz come earlier tonight. So I urged council to support building that inclusionary housing. I personally don't see any arguments against it, especially from what Jane said earlier. So please do provide more of that housing for housing insecure members of the city. I know that Councilmember Jung lived on the east end of the city and was struggling financially. And I know that he could have benefited from that inclusionary housing. Development seems to be a major interest for this council. So personally, I believe that we're asking for crumbs here, the bare minimum. Please include inclusionary housing using some of the, just do it. Please build some of the, please do something for our housing insecure members of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, good evening.
Hi again. So it doesn't seem like anybody's actually talking about the agenda item itself. They're talking about inclusionary housing, whether or not that's good or not. I mean, if you were to follow what Ms. Reifer said, that she's talked to developers and they said they'll just do it, then why do you need to spend a year's salary of an employee, $45,000 to $60,000, in order to study this amorphous thing that has all these different caveats and different ways to do it? You have a planning commission. There's 5 of you on council. You have plenty of staff. It seems like you don't need to spend money to study something if developers will just do it. This is another issue where it seems like council's abdicating their role of finding solutions, talking to staff, and making staff do their jobs, and just hiring a contractor that probably makes the wage of staff to do this. I don't understand. Like, if inclusionary housing being good or bad, that's an issue that comes up after this item has been studied and agendized and talked about and all of the meetings have been held. That conversation is after all of this. This conversation is, are you going to spend $45,000 to $60,000 based on your agenda report to pay somebody from outside the city to study what you and city staff should already know? So I would actually say vote no on this, send it back to staff and say, why are we paying somebody to do your job for you? And then come back with what the recommendation is or is not for inclusionary housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, we'll bring this back to council for further questions or discussion. Anybody want to kick this off? Sure. Councilman Zara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, one of these rare occasions where I agree with Mr. Ferguson. I think this is our second time. I don't know why we're spending $45,000 to $60,000, and I'm not sure if why would this require fiscal analysis versus a policy? This is a policy analysis. This is more of a policy matter. But I would have liked to see more of a comparison of what other cities have done, what ordinances they may have. I know there's going to be differences between one city and the other, but it would be great to see maybe a comparison chart or something. I would certainly entertain also look at what incentives they have, how they got it through. But this is to me a matter of policy, not a matter of and I wouldn't really support spending money at this point anyway, unless there's some major thing that I don't know about. So that was it's a comment and a question, I suppose, at the same time.
Very good. Let's have that answered.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the city policy, the policy is to come back and ask for direction. So the recommendation is two-part. Do you want us to look at a land use policy, which do you want to mandate that all inclusionary housing has to be on-site, or can they be off-site? Can someone donate land? And staff can do that research. In addition to that, do you want to do it just for rental, or do you want to do it both for, sale, for sale properties? So there's a long list of land use policy questions that if the council directs us, staff will come back with the policy, what everybody does. But at this point, we're just first would be looking for direction on the last land use. If the city council wanted to do an in lieu fee, so a developer could pay an in lieu fee and not do inclusionary housing, then because of state law, fiscal analysis would have to be done. So it's a two-part. Like I said, first is the discussion of land use if we receive direction tonight. So staff was following the policy of the council of coming back when two council people ask for just a general, here's the information and here's your options.
And in looking at other cities, have they gone through this process, and what sort of process? Let's say, I know Santa Ana was the most recent city.
Well, Santa Ana's had inclusionary housing for many years. Okay. They've changed it over the years several times, including the percentage they went from 10% to 15 down to 5, back up to 15. So, Huntington Beach changed theirs to where you used to not be able to buy it. You do an in lieu fee for over 30 units. Now you can go up to 45 or greater with council approval. So ordinances change over time, and we can do that research if that's the direction of the majority of the city council.
Yeah, because I'd like to see that. I'd like, before we spend money, let's see if we can get together as much information as possible, and then have maybe a skeleton of an ordinance put together or policy ideas, I suppose, that we can maybe give direction to. That's kind of the what I was hoping to see today.
All right, good point, sir.
Thanks.
Councilmember Silva, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I was expecting to see a little more, but I do like the idea of coming back and giving us a comparison chart of what each city that already has one has in regards to land use and in lieu of fees, and then that way we can make a little bit more educated decision on whether we want to go for a consultant or not. And I also in reading the staff report, the third paragraph from the end, that looked like an advertising for a pro developer city. It just seemed to me like we really focused on the developer, not making the profits versus the benefits that those inclusionary housing can bring to our city. And I also have spoken to a lot of developers down here. I've spoken to the Southern California business industry, and then when I was in Sacramento, I spoke to the California building industry. And they're not opposed to inclusionary housing. Their only thing is they want the rules beforehand so they know how to calculate their final margins. They don't like the idea of coming into a city and all of a sudden, we want inclusionary housing. Well, we've already done all our research and it's not included. So I know there's been here prior on, some of the council members have been concerned about, that'll stifle developers coming in here. They won't come in here. I've spoken to some of the council members in those cities, and they're still getting developers going in there, and they're not opposed to that. They just want to have that line item already set so that they can do the calculations. So, yeah, I would like I said, maybe come back with a little analysis of what other cities are doing, what are they offering, and then maybe even a list of developers that have gone into these cities that haven't been scared away by the inclusionary clause. And then maybe the cities must have a list of who's developing right now that their projects would include inclusionary housing.
So, Councilman, would you be in favor of then making a motion to table this item and then have staff bring back something a little bit more intricate? How's that, in detail?
Yeah, I think
That's what Councilman
yeah,
Zara
yeah,
wanted.
yeah, I thought I was mimicking that. Yeah, no, but I would agree. I'd like to come back with that with something more
But
detailed.
we'd like to table it
Yeah.
currently, right?
I
this
don't
one,
know
well,
if table is the right term, though.
Okay,
Is that-
continue the item? What would you like? What
Yeah,
term would you
table
like to
actually
use?
has legal significance. I would
Okay.
recommend we continue it with direction.
Continue it with,
Yeah.
with staff direction now given. Okay. All right, how's that? Is
Yeah,
that
no,
okay?
yeah, that's fine. And
There is particular meeting?
what could be a good timeline for staff? I know we're always under the gun here.
We are under the gun, and our focus has to be the housing element. So what I would recommend that staff work through the housing element, and as part of the housing element, this could be part of that discussion, since, the Planning Commission would seem to be supportive of it.
And what does that look like, time frame? What are we looking at? August, September, November?
We're going to be working out a timeline this week. We're meeting with HCD on a phone conversation this week. So let us send a memo through the city manager on the time frame, and then if there's any comments, you can talk to the city manager.
About earliest as possible.
Yeah, fair enough. All right.
Very good.
Thank you, Mayor. I like that.
Okay. So we do have a motion from Councilman Zara. We do have a second from Councilman Silva, it seems like. Are there any further comments? Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I was looking at an article in Cal Matters, which says affordable housing production needs more sugar, less vinegar. So the idea of creating ironclad policies which create mandates talks about the process of which has been happening. It's been happening with transit-oriented development for some time, where the majority of these are worked out. But often it results in internal negotiations which reduce parking requirements, increase density, sometimes increase density tremendously, and allow developers to be able to work a profit out of that. I think both are somewhat dangerous because I've had concerns before about putting on autopilot much higher density in areas of our city where the infrastructure can't handle it at all. So, but I do agree with the basic premise of this article. I think it's worthwhile reading, that rather than creating an ironclad kind of policy, that you're much better off to work with incentives. If you're going to look at individual projects, you're able to tailor that rather than, again, broad stroke, just making this policy that affects all corners of our city. So I think a little more time to talk about it, gather more information would be a good thing, really.
Very well, sir. All right. Councilman Dunlap, anything?
My own view at this point was that a receive and file was appropriate at this time, considering, I think, a lot of the other issues that, we're dealing with as a city, that I know that staff is dealing with. We've seen a number of different housing projects come before the council, and I don't believe, there's been maybe one project that's gotten tied up or that's had comments or suggestions. There's been a number of others that have been approved. And so, we keep hearing this talk that, hey, the council needs to do more, the council needs to do more. The council's doing everything really it can. I think you start to look at policies like this that are really, draconian in nature. And I think to force somebody and to impose mandates on somebody, to suggest that simply because they will, doesn't mean that's something that should be done, And additionally, I think to point to Santa Ana as sort of the model city for housing policy in Orange County, that's quite laughable. And I think even people in Santa Ana would tell you that. So, that said, my view is that, I think at this point, I would actually make a substitute motion to receive and file, because I think we did hear that, in fact, staff is quite busy. This would, in fact, require, reports through the city manager's office just to tell us how long it would take for staff to continue to study this internally. And I think at this point, that's not something that's required or not something that's warranted. So I'll be making a substitute motion to receive and file this report this evening.
I would second that substitute motion, Mr. Mayor, and I do have one additional comment.
Yes, sir.
One of the problems with internal subsidies of this sort to create affordable housing of a certain percentage of units is that in the process you're driving the market rates even higher. So it's a little bit like a dog chasing its own tail to some extent. The more that we force upon developers, the more that rents are going to increase. So it does have its downside as well.
And a question, clarifying, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
So since we're looking to bring an item back to study it. Even if this item was to receive and file, we can still have two council members bring an item before to bring back a comparison, more of a detailed item of affordable housing, right?
You certainly can.
Yeah, okay. And, all right, thank you.
Absolutely. Madam City Clerk, there's a substitute motion on the table. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
No.
Councilmember Zara.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
And Mayor Jung.
No, I'd like to see this in some form and see what it pencils out and looks at. But again, focus on the housing element. We need that first. I think we have to have priorities here. Thank you.
Would you like to vote on the original motion then?
Sure.
Okay, on the original motion, Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
And that one passes 3-2.
Very good. We'll move on. Next item on the agenda, number 13, is Orange County Power Authority discussion. This is a presentation that's supposed to be made by our city manager, but I think we've had closed session discussions on this, so we're welcome to detail us or give you as much of a presentation as you can. Otherwise, we'll move on to public comments, sir.
So, Mayor, excuse me, Mayor Jung and city council members, I'm just going to give a brief overview of this issue and open it for comments and questions. As you're aware, this has had the Orange County Power Authority has had a lot of public comment. There has been recently, actually around the same time as this report went out, as we were working on the report, a civil grand jury findings that are still waiting for responses from OCPA. That's coming from them. That just was recently released. Every city has had action on this, and so at this time, what we are recommending as a staff is that the city council authorize or support the audit being done by the city of Irvine and have the city manager's office or appropriate staff see and coordinate with the city of Irvine and monitor their findings from their audit.
All right, very good, sir.
Yeah, one more thing I would add, and there are apparently some internal investigations that are occurring, and that we would recommend that we let those investigations proceed to their conclusion, and based upon those recommendations and conclusions, act accordingly.
All right, very well. We'll go ahead and hear public comment on this item. Members of the public wish to comment, please go ahead and line up to your left, my right. Mr. Ferguson again.
I was talking this much at council, so I apologize. But I'm curious because, well, first of all, investigations done about an agency by that agency are useless. They always investigate themselves and find that they did nothing wrong. So that's a waste of time to even worry about that. There are outside investigations being done. There's an audit that, according to what I've read, Mayor Jung supports. But I haven't read up enough on this, so excuse my ignorance. What I'm curious about, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, the city had agreed to be a part of this and was going to have city power dealt with through this plan, and then citizens, once it became a thing, could opt out. I called them to try to opt out, and they're like, you can't yet because it's not actually a thing. I'm like, okay, whatever, awesome. But shouldn't the city, if we're waiting for these audits, we don't know how bad it is, we don't know what's going on, shouldn't the city not be mandating participation? Because it's going to raise, the city paying for power through the system is going to raise rates on how much the city pays for power, which is going to then push that onto taxpayers. And if we don't know how corrupt the system is and we don't know where the money's going or what's happening, then shouldn't we not be participating? Like, shouldn't we put a hold on our active participation until afterwards? It seems like this investigation, as I've seen within city investigations, could drag on for years. All right, internal audits take forever. Internal investigations take forever. We don't know how long. So if the investigation drags on longer than our participation starts, then we're waiting to decide what we're going to do after the fact. And California has a really good habit of pulling the rug out from agencies to be able to change what they want to do later. So it just seems to me like if it really is a concern, if you really do support an audit and you really are worried about it, we should also be considering stopping our participation contingent on the findings, not waiting until after the fact. Because doing it the other way is just saying we're going to do something and then watching as we actually can't when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please. While we're waiting on Mr. Cho, is there anything on Zoom?
We have one hand raised in Zoom.
Sure.
Kayla, you should be able to unmute.
Hello again. As the previous speaker, I also don't like making as many comments at City Council as I currently am tonight, but here we are. I actually really like the idea of supporting the retention of an independent auditor by Irvine and city manager to maintain the communication with Irvine during the audit. I think that everyone on the dais and a lot of people in this room know that the Orange County Public Power Authority has been very not transparent with a lot of things, especially with the new leadership that they have, or the current leadership. It's been a very, very messy agency, one that has been not doing its due diligence regarding the job of providing that clean power and community choice energy and everything. So I would very much support having that independent auditor to investigate all of this stuff and really just hold the members of the OCPA accountable. I know that I believe that Councilmember Jung is on the OCPA, and so I'd assume that you know how it's being run. The lack of transparency on this agency is appalling. Kind of mirrors the dysfunction of this city council. So don't let this city turn out like Anaheim with all of that corruption and FBI audits and everything and investigations. And don't let the OCPA fall into the same boat. We need to have some accountability in this city and this county, and that really starts with OCPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cho, good evening.
Hello, my name is Bernard, and I am a Fullerton resident. Mr. Jung, you hijacked the position of our city's representative on the Power Authority Board, as you've done with so many other regional boards that you're now on. It seems to be all title grabbing. For 2 years, we've rarely heard anything from you about what you're actually doing there. The only thing we know is that you did a favor for Power Authority Quo board member Mike Posey to help him pitch his library privatization business to the library board. Something you obviously failed at, but nonetheless, you offered the favor. Was this a quid pro quo? Now all the scandals of corruption, abuse, misconduct revealed about this agency, you seem to be in the middle of it, giving favors to other board members. I urge that our city retain an independent investigation, but that this includes investigating any abuse by Mr. Jung. I also urge that, Mr. Jung, you step down from this position, as you clearly are incapable of transparency or properly representing us on what could have been a great initiative for our environment. Enough self-dealings. Que pobrecito.
Any other public comments? Seeing none in chambers, we'll bring this back to council. It's Jung, hard J. Young is not my name. Any council members wish to make comments?
Joe, it's not my name either.
Made your comment. Good night. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I had asked for this item before the grand jury report came out, because I was, as myself like many others, were wondering what was going on with all the news articles about the Power Authority. And I'm glad that, when we got the grand jury report, and then that kind of shed some light on what I wanted to find out what's going on with the staff, the management, and so forth. And I do understand that there is two investigations going on, so we're limited to what we can ask or do. But I think some of the recommendations and findings from the grand jury, hopefully we can get some answers as to whether they're considering it or in process of being implemented, because I don't know if they could wait till we get those reports out. Like, I'll read us some of these. The first finding from the Orange County Power Authority was that the Orange County Power, from the grand jury, were that finding one, the Orange County Power Authority has not properly implemented bylaws and other procedures to promote and ensure transparency. Now, I'll ask, I know, Mr. Mayor, you're on that board, but is there a way we can get an update on that? Are they in the process of implementing these bylaws so that everyone's held accountable for transparency? I don't know if something like this can wait until.
What I would recommend, if it's the will of this council, and I'd certainly support it, is for us to write a letter to the Power Authority management from our city manager, stating the concerns that we have and ask that they address them, just in the same manner that they have to address the grand jury report and answer back on those questions as well. I think if you're expecting answers, that's a good way to do it.
Fair enough. And I'll just read a couple more, just because to me they were kind of really mind-boggling that they didn't have this in place. So number 2 says the Orange County Power Authority unreasonably delayed the formation of a, what do we call it, a Community Advisory Committee, has failed to properly utilize the Community Advisory Committee member experience and has stifled the committee from functioning as an advisory committee as intended. And then the last one I'll read is the Orange County Power Authority hiring practices and procedures for both employees and contractors have failed to follow best practices, potentially damaging the credibility of the agency in raising questions of cronyism. And so, yeah, I am, I guess, Mr. Ferguson, you and I will agree on, again, for the few number of times, but there was a concern of mine that if the Power Authority collapses under these investigations, I know the city's not on the hook for anything because Irvine is bankrolling it, but currently our commercial and retail businesses are being they were forced into choosing, and right now they're in that level that we selected for them. And the question I had was, what happens if this company or if this authority does crumble and it goes into BK? The businesses that are currently paying that extra fee for renewable energy, they lose out. And how do we stop that? How do we protect them if that happens? And you're right, the residential rate will not kick in until October, so hopefully we'll know by October if the authority is going to remain and how, in what form, what fashion. And if it looks questionable, then I think we should look into how do we protect our residents from paying extra and not really reaping the benefits. And I know I got a lot of bad emails when I said this before about having everyone opt in automatically and then having the customer have to opt out. And I know from past experience that many of the residents who can least afford another rate increase are going to know about it or opt out. They'll just say, well, I got to pay the electric bill. And that was a concern from the get-go of mine, is especially right now during this period where everything's going up, gas, food, everything, and now you're going to add another fee to electricity that, I don't think it's needed at this point. But anyway, I will ask them that we send a letter through our city manager to ask about the findings and the recommendations that the grand jury made and see which ones they've taken action on and which ones they need to wait until these investigations go through. And but I would like to have some answers sooner than later.
And I would ask that you, in that motion, if you're making one, sir, that you that we support the audit by Irvine and direct the city manager and maintain communication accordingly about it, right?
All right, yeah, if you're willing to amend it, I'll second yours then.
All right, very good. In terms of the opt-in, opt-out, it's the state mandate that makes you opt out. It's not
I know, but
it's
it
not
was
up
just,
to the agency.
Yeah, it's just
the
something that
state.
The residents will not opt out.
Yeah, you know somebody at the state level, sir.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Councilman Zara, anything, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little disappointed on how all of this happened. I mean, we came, we brought this forward with the city of Irvine. We joined them in good faith that this was going to be, as it was painted, a very positive and rosy thing, and provide for our environment and options for our residents, only for it to come to this point. There were some residents that were citing some warning signs, I suppose. I wish they had been listened to. We certainly, this council never received any updates for sure on this matter for a long period. The public was really only getting very little information, which is very unfortunate. But you know, and I am concerned about the credibility of this agency moving forward. So any investigation really needs to be thorough and independent, and it cannot take extended periods of time. I hope there is a short timeline for this investigation, and I hope that the letter that we send out is not a letter of questions, but a letter of demanding transparency and demanding accountability. And I hope the OCPA board and our representative, who I know is pushing for this, and I appreciate that, Mr. Jung, Mayor Jung, but I hope we can be a little bit more forceful in our actions and demands for this type of transparency and accountability from this agency. So I'll support the item, but again, the wording of the letter is important. It cannot be just asking questions, but it should be demanding answers.
Very good, sir. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, anything, sir?
I believe it is time to ask some tough questions a little bit, because there are some great concerns. Certainly Irvine has had more operating control than the other cities at this point, and they're the ones that seem to be highly concerned. They have the most to lose at present. I know that when this council took the position, I think it was a fairly wise one now, to take the middle tier as far as a default amount. As we're looking at perhaps sliding into a fairly severe recession, those cost differentials could be a problem. We were originally promised, as I recollect, that the rates would be something on the order of 4% or so lower than Southern Cal Edison. What I'd want to ask in that letter is it true that for the 100% renewable rate, I've been reading about it, it said it's actually 6.5 to 15.7% more expensive already than Southern Cal Edison. And then for the middle tier, it's a little bit better. It's 3.8 to 8.3% higher. So we're not getting 4% lower. We're getting a pretty good spread there in terms of costs. And this is fairly early when we're looking at about a $2 million penalty that was applied, which they're going to have to shoulder as well. And also, it sounds like from grand jury report, certainly, well, can't talk about details, so I'll just pass on that right now. I would have a question to ask on behalf of the residents now, because information has been lacking. I know from commercial customers, they were said that they weren't notified, at least to the extent that it got on their radar screen, and it's already too late on that one. But I'm reading that in Irvine, the opt-out period begins in August, and I'm wondering if that's the same for us. I haven't really seen or read anything specific about it. They call it an opt-in or opt-out, but opt-in is the default, so it really is only an opt-out period that we're talking about. So I do believe that it is incumbent upon the management of OCPA to be answering some of these questions. They are, after all, a public agency, and they inherit all the powers that the JPA members have, including powers to tax and powers to create debt on behalf of the public. So with that being the case, I think our city council is late to the party here because the other members are already going on record in news articles. Even though we don't have the specifics with which to get real specific, I would be asking those open questions and seeking answers. I don't know about demanding answers. We're owed answers. They should
Indeed.
be provided.
Well said, sir. Councilman Dunlap, anything, sir?
Really agree with a lot of what the Mayor Pro Tem has had to say. This has been interesting for me to follow, considering I wasn't initially supportive of it, and really went against my better judgment, my own better judgment, I think, in supporting it the first time around. And what I've noticed in each step of this process in dealing with with this agency is that you get the emails from the same group of people, the same activists, the same lobbyists, consultants, and it's almost as though, hey, an issue comes out or something's in the news or something's circulated, and before you know it, you're getting 4 or 5 emails or calls from the same people that want to talk to you to reinforce or make sure that they can, that they can guarantee your support in this particular issue, almost wanting you to double down. And, after that first meeting where, we supported sort of the opt-in, and it really reluctantly did that, this has just turned out to be, I think, exactly what we expected it to be. And it's it's kind of a created government disaster, and I think we're expecting this agency to do something that perhaps it's not capable of, and that's righting itself. So, and, look, I don't want to say a lot more on the issue. Obviously, we do know there's some claims that have been I think, raised in the news, and fortunately there's been good news coverage on those issues, a lot of which is where I've learned about these issues, to also ask questions. But, I think it's important. One thing I will say, look, we need to get to the facts and we need to get to the bottom of it so we can do what's best for Fullerton. It's not a time for political grandstanding. I just hope we can get these questions answered.
I agree on the grandstanding politically. As the representative for OCPA for Fullerton, my advocate for transparency in this organization has been well documented by the before named news sources that you're mentioning. So there is a motion on the table. I would ask again that it be stern in terms of what we are as a council asking for from OCPA, and that is answers to these questions, and that we support the audit of the member city of Irvine, and we will wait to take action thereof after the independent investigation of these claims have concluded. So there's a motion. I do have a second from Councilman Silva. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
All right, next item on the list is a tentative agreement between the City of Fullerton and its Police Officers Association. Director Manfro. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council. We do have a brief presentation. This is to consider the memoranda of agreement reflecting tentative agreements between the City of Fullerton, Police Officers Association, Public Safety Units, and Dispatcher Units in the city. And just to be clear for the public, the Fullerton Police Officers Association does represent 2 distinct units, a safety unit and a dispatcher unit. By way of background, these negotiations began in March. The Public Safety Unit represents 122 positions, includes sworn members and classifications of police officer, police corporal, and police sergeant. The Dispatcher Unit covers 19 budgeted positions, includes forensic specialists, jailers, lead forensic specialists, lead dispatchers, and dispatchers. Both of these agreements expired on June 30th. Thank you. These will be, if approved, 2-year agreements with the option, the option on the Police Officers Association's side to extend for 1 additional year with no additional increase should they exercise that option. Included in this agreement is a 5.25% across the board salary increase for all positions. Another substantive item is a longevity pay concept, which starts at the 6th year of service. In year 1, it's a 3% addition to pay. In year 2 of the agreement, it increases to 6%. Other items included in the agreement for the sworn unit, some modification to master police officer language to ensure compliance with CalPERS regulations, not a cost item. We also have some adjustments to the educational incentive pay, which was a nominal cost item, but does make attainment a little bit easier for some members. In the dispatchers unit, we do have a uniform allowance of $25 per pay period for the forensic specialist series. And then for our dispatch personnel, we do have a $25 per shift bonus for graveyard shift and requirements to perform federally mandated time-sensitive police records duties. Lastly, summary of costs for the agreements for the police officers, sworn safety unit, $1.4 million per year cost in year 1 of the agreement, increases to $1.8 million in year 2. For the dispatchers, in year 1 of the agreement, $135,000. In year 2, $160,000. I do want to say thank you to the negotiators for the Police Officers Association as well as the council for sticking with the process, and I think this has been a good result.
Very good. Before we take council comments or statements from council members, I'm going to ask the members of the public that wish to make public comment to go ahead and do so. Line up to your left, my right. Are there any callers on Zoom while we wait for Mr. Ferguson?
We have no hands raised in Zoom.
Very good. Mr. Ferguson, good evening.
Okay, what do the residents get out of this? I mean, no offense to public safety. Well, maybe a little bit of offense to public safety, considering that I got sued because the blog I wrote for exposed police misconduct because the city tries to cover up everything that goes wrong with the city. What do we get out of it? I see increases. I see more benefits. I don't actually see the actual math on this. I don't believe the math to begin with because it's always wrong. The projected budgets are always wrong. What's the CalPERS cost on this? How much is that going to cost us down the road? What's the actual math for the taxpayers? But beyond that, what do we get out of it as far as accountability? It's been a decade since Fullerton PD beat Kelly Thomas to death, and we've been asking for some form of oversight and have gotten nothing for a decade. Matter of fact, let me reiterate, council sued me personally for exposing police misconduct because the city was writing agreements literally to shield officers from public disclosure laws. Katie Hamill was being shielded from SB 1421. We had to sue to get the information on, Silseo, who assaulted somebody and falsified a report. We reported on a cop that used his body cam to film up a 17-year-old skirt, which Fullerton PD, this council, and the school board pushed under the rug and still have never talked about it. We talked about an officer who falsified a report in the city of Placentia. The city buried that. Mind you, they did wrongfully arrest somebody for that one, so at least they tried to talk about it in a way that benefited them. What do we get? Do we ever get oversight? Every time you guys negotiate, it's maybe a weight on higher pay, but it's higher pay, higher benefits, this benefit, that benefit, this incentive, that incentive. As ratepayers, are we ever going to get real oversight? I know we have an advisory commission that the chief gets to choose who talks to him, and then they sort of just lick boots the whole time. But what do we get? It's been a decade. What actual oversight do we get? Because I've seen none. The only oversight we get is when the public shows oversight. And then you guys sue those people. Right. So, ever are we going to get that? Be nice. Cheers.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Hello, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Council Member Zara, Council Member Silva, and Council Member Dunlop. I'm ZJ Hahn. I became familiar with Fullerton when I moved here in 1978. I just have one question of the presentation. There were some figures, fiscal impact $1.4 million, and then the next year $1.6 million, and for the dispatchers $135,000, next year $160,000. Is that increase? Is that an increase? That's not the total. That's just the increase of what already is established. That's my question. Go Hornets, go Titans. Good evening.
All right, seeing no more
Mayor, we do
comment.
have one hand that raised in
Let's
Zoom.
take that Zoom caller, please.
Kayla, you should be allowed to unmute.
Yay, thank you. So Yeah, I just want to echo that. I personally don't know why we are trying to raise the police budget so much when we have the use of force problems. The 2 commenters ago, we had the thing about Kelly Thomas, Hector Hernandez. So if our police members are constantly killing members of our community, and then we're suing the police department for trying to hide things, why are we trying to increase the budget by several 100,000, or if I was understanding the presentation correctly, by like close to 2 million? Why are we trying to make these additions to the police budget when the police are terrorizing a lot of our communities of color, our low-income communities? This is not just something that happens in Fullerton, of course. This happens all across the country. And all across the country, it is a problem. So with Fullerton, Santa Ana, Anaheim, all having recent people murdered by police in the few years that I've been here, and several of the cities in the county having the most dangerous police departments in the state, why are we trying to increase the police budget and arm people for dispatching when that was how we got into this mess in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll bring this back to council. Mr. Gamble.
Sorry about that. Mr. Mayor, City Council, Curtis Gamble, activist for the homeless and the veterans. I'm always for the projects that you guys are doing. Supporting the police. I'm probably one of the biggest police fans there is, as long as you go by the rules and do right. But I just want to say I do support this item, but when we do items, what I would like to see, and because on behalf of Kelly Thomas, the incidents that happened, because they're still happening, and throughout the United States. But what I'd like to see is something like, for example, like the city of I can't remember what city it is. Oh, I know it is, North Hollywood. They just defunded maybe 4 police officers, and what they replaced them with was about 60. I think it was about 60 unarmed security guards. So that is going to really kind of be like the future, because what the public is asking for is a lot of unarmed services. So I think that we want to take a look at what some of the other cities are beginning to do, and I think North Hollywood did that because they voted in a new mayor. I think it was a young lady. And I think that the younger generation of councilmen are not going to make the changes that we need if you guys don't make them. But this is the future. Unarmed security, bicycle ambassadors is what they call them. So, again, how much time I got? Oh, again, the budget kind of the police officers now in Fullerton is more than what the residents is. I think it was almost 50-50, but basically it's more if you look at all of the detailed things that they're getting now. So when I come, I usually ask the person who have the most money for stuff. So it looks like I'm going to be asking the police for different things. And, I've, for example, I'll give you an example, what I would ask them for. Like with the police budget now, when you go back to the military budget, well, I would ask them for things like tiny military houses for the homeless. Everything that the city would normally do for the people, I don't mind asking the police department to do it, since they're getting the majority of the funding now. So when I come to the mic and I say, Mr. Police, can I have this?
Thank you.
Please let us have it. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll bring this back to council. And I'll seek a motion from council members or further discussion on this issue. Anyone?
I'll move the items.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap,
Aye.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Zara,
Aye.
Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4 in favor right now, and we'll catch Councilmember
We will,
Whitaker, or
when he
Mayor Pro Tem
returns.
Whitaker when he's back in the room.
All right, so we'll move on to the next item. It's Board, Commission, Committee business cards. This ought to be quick, folks. So there's no PowerPoint. It's just really, Madam City Clerk, you want to say something?
I even have 2 prepared paragraphs to make it very quick for you.
Very good.
So, thank you, Mayor. The issue of committee member business cards comes up, as you know, probably periodically amongst our committee members. The city currently does not provide business cards to committee members. As I understand it, at least 2 of our transportation and circulation commissioners have taken it upon themselves to create their own business cards at their own expense, which has again prompted the discussion of whether City Council would like to offer business cards to all committee members, either at city expense, and if so, would the city prefer the members use their own personal contact information or use a city contact? Or alternatively, the city could allow the members to print their own business cards at their own expense after getting permission to use the city seal. So we just like council's direction on this item. Hopefully, it's an easy decision. Sometimes you see these things get the most complicated, but we'll see what we can get through tonight.
Very good, Madam City Clerk. Thank you for that. We're going to seek public comment on this. If there's members in chambers that wish to comment, please go ahead and do so. Seeing Ms. Milton wanting to comment, we'll wait on her. Is there anybody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom, and while you're waiting for Maureen to get to the microphone, we'd like to check in with Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker on the previous item and how we'd like to vote.
Wow, that came down quickly. Aye.
Thank you. That would pass unanimously then.
Ms. Milton, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak again. Business cards, the least expensive form of advertising that there is. The business cards for the commissioners and committee members should be different than staff business cards to show that they are, if anyone asks why is their card different, that we are volunteers. We are not paid by the city. And if there are black and white, it's a lot less expensive than a multicolored card. And as I say, it differentiates between staff and volunteers. Business cards should have the individual's name, their committee and title, and their entitlements. Entitlements tell people that you have worked your gluteus maximus off for whatever you have achieved. And it's also an icebreaker. Every time I see a PhD on a business card, I said, oh, what field are you a fuddy-duddy in? And then, I've lost my, and then their commission or committee, and the city address, seal, of course, and the person's contact number, and their internet contacts, their emails, and important is the phone number that lets anyone know that they are here to help anyone. Not just the people that have access to the internet. And it should always have the city's general information number because someone will say, well, if I can't help you, here's the number to call to get the correct department. And emergency cards, you always keep 12 cards and tack them onto a sheet of cardstock. And if you run out of cards, that means that you just run to the copy shop and hurry up and copy them. They don't have to be perfect until you get new. And if you're good enough and do it fast enough, you'll be passing out cards faster than kids at Halloween. And also, the most important thing, it promotes civil engagement. How often do I sit in front of the
Thank
city
you.
hall?
Thank you, Ms. Milton.
Okay, thank you, dear.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Hello, I would like to say I'm in favor of having a business card for all the city council members and city officials. A lot of technology has been changing, and a lot of business cards have a QR code on them now. So let's say someone has a business and you can see their website. So I thought it'd be a good idea for maybe city council members to have a QR code on their business card. And this could actually link to a document. And just by scanning the card, you could maybe see updates on a regular basis as far as information that would be useful, which would save people a lot of time having to search on the website or lift up the phone and call. They could just see like, oh, okay, that's the information for my district that I wanted to know about. So, thank you.
Mr. Campbell.
Curtis, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Curtis Campbell, activist for the homeless. I just like to say on that item, I'm for the business cards. As a matter of fact, when I'm in contact with people, I really enjoyed the part of the business card, which is very simple, but the email. I don't do like a lot of phone calling, but I like the part that where we could exchange cards. As a matter of fact, I think you should have them for the homeless, since we're in contact with them also, because it's just again, the email is just a great direct contact. Besides the other forms of communication. So I just like to say I approve of this item. I think it's
all right. Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to bring this back to council. I'll seek a motion or action or no action or whatever the council will is. Councilman Silva, anything, sir?
I would say, so we don't pick anyone, just one commission. I would say the alternative, if they want to let them print their own and then we just allow them to use the city seal. I give mine out, but and on a side note, when I'm with my wife, who's the assembly member, people want to talk to. When I was mayor, the mayor or the council member, they rarely know who the assembly member is on some occasions. But so in this case, I think the amount of contact that some of the commissioners come into would not, in my opinion, would not warrant a card for everybody. If we do want to allow cards, I would say maybe the alternative recommendation to let them, have the use of our city seal, and then they can move on. In my 4 years as commissioner and 6 years on the council, I haven't seen this item come before us in terms of commissioners requesting a business card. So I don't know how often it comes up, if it has come up, but this is the first time I've seen it in my 10 years of being on a commission or council.
Councilman Silva, thank you very much for that. Councilman Czar, any comments, sir?
I'm not really a big fan of sort of vanity items, and so this to me just is that and as much as we appreciate the commissioners for their service, it really should be about that, not about passing business cards. And so I'm hoping that's the case. I also am concerned about misrepresentation that could happen. This is we as electeds are accountable. There are certain levels of accountability. I'm worried that commissioners may not go under that scrutiny, and then these cards could be, or whoever they're passing them to, may be misconstrued in certain ways. I'm not really a big fan of it. There's also the added cost and logistics, and we have so many commissioners now. Some of them come and go. These are not permanent positions. And so I don't think this is something that we should really deal with this at this point. So I'm not really in favor of it. Maybe we can just look at this on there's other cities that don't have this. So I don't know. I just think this is not an important issue at this point, and we shouldn't really be dealing with it.
Understood. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, any thoughts, sir?
Well, I think when you consider the amount of hours that people dedicate to these positions, and it's all voluntary, that the amount of cost is fairly de minimis. And we have recently expanded some of these committees and commissions. So I think I would maybe preface the option with asking people whether they would like them or whether they would use them. And if many of them wouldn't use them, then obviously we shouldn't just automatically provide them to people who don't want them. But I do believe it's a very small price to pay to allow people to feel connected. Often these committees, commissions are training grounds for future council members as well. So I think that to look at this as a major cost item is inaccurate, and I think that the goodwill and the sense of connectedness by allowing people this minor compensation, if some of them would consider it that, is, it's not really, in the past, this was never discussed because we weren't pinching pennies to that extent. But I think we spend so much more staff time coordinating and then so often canceling or postponing these commissions and committees, and that's partly why some of the members drift off. So I think minimum expense, and if it's handled properly, what we're doing is projecting respect for what they're doing.
Understood, sir. Councilmember Dunlap, any thoughts, sir?
I don't really feel strongly about it one way or the other. I suppose, having been a planning commissioner myself, didn't have a business card at that time, and as a former county commissioner, didn't have a business card at that time. Candidly, even for my day job, I have business cards that I rarely use, and I go to give somebody a card, and I end up giving them somebody else's card. So I think considering how widely used the internet and social media is today, it's kind of a moot point or a moot issue. I suppose if someone is so compelled, they want to be contacted or they want to, kind of advertise that they're a commissioner, they feel they need to do that. Well, maybe, I think there was an option in here that allowed that person to present the city, the city seal on a business card for the city manager to consider or something to that effect. Wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that. For me, it's not a cost issue. I think more than anything, you're out in the community, you talk to people and hear things, and I think you kind of run the risk of maybe having people become rogue, officials or representatives, if you will, and misinterpreting or giving their own viewpoint on things. And you certainly don't want to undermine the good work that our commissioners do. But it's just not something I support or feel is a priority at this point.
Thank you for that. So of the four council members here, 3 or 4 of us have been on Fullerton commissions in one form or another at one period or another. So we certainly understand the request here and the ask. But I do agree with my council member colleagues on this issue. I don't see a need for it. So I'd make a motion to have no cards at all. Continue on with your good work and service, and be thankful that, or understand that we are thankful for that service, and we're indebted to them accordingly. So that would be my motion.
I'll second that.
Very well. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
Okay, the number 16, I believe, is a matter of protocol for us. I'll ask the city attorney to advise us on it accordingly. But it's to reconsider Senate Bill 9, 2-unit and urban lot split residential development ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, on June 7, 2022, the City Council was presented on its agenda, second reading and adoption of City Ordinance 3313, which related to the state mandates required under SB 9, allowing for lot splits with respect to residential lots. And this ordinance proposed to make certain conditions locally with respect to compliance with that law. Unfortunately, in reviewing the events of that evening, after receiving a complaint, it was determined that a request was not made of Zoom callers to speak, and the city clerk could not recall seeing any hands raised, but could not recall with specificity. So to avoid any question of a Brown Act violation, we brought this back for your reconsideration and potential ratification or denial based upon your own actions with respect to ordinance number 3313, but reopen it for public comments so the public can fully address the issues consistent with the Brown Act.
All right, very well, sir. As a matter of protocol, we will go to Zoom right now and see if there's any members of the public that wish to comment. Please go ahead and raise their hands.
And we do have one hand raised, and it's caller ending in 5062. You should be able to unmute. Caller ending 5062.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, hi, this is Sam Andriano. I was the person who had called at the previous meeting. I appreciate you guys reopening this. The reason I brought it up previously was because HCD, Housing California Department, had sent a letter to Temple City explaining that the 800 square foot maximum for SB9 was inappropriate because residential lots not developed under SB9 had a much different ratio as far as what size house they were allowed to build. And they said in their letter, for example, it says, and I quote, "A typical 7,200 square foot lot in the R1 zone is generally able to be developed with a house approximately 3,000 square foot in size. Were the same size lot developed with urban dwellings pursuant to city's SB9 implementation ordinance, the size of each home would be limited to 800 square feet." And so when you look at that, HCD says you can't do that. And I think it was pretty clear from the letter that HCD said in Temple City. Now, if you take the same example in Fullerton and you say, okay, 7,200 square foot, I believe the ratio is 0.45, you come up with a little over 3,200. And so if you're doing a single unit. So there's definite conflict according to this letter by HCD to Temple City. And I don't think it's really necessarily a legal issue. It's a math issue. I mean, granted, there are a lot of very creative attorneys, but math seems to be pretty straightforward. You know, you take the one zone, you multiply the FAR, and you get the maximum square footage of maybe 3,200. SB9 says, nope, sorry, you can only have 800. And that's what basically HCD was telling Temple City is you can't do it like that. You have to either fix one or the other. You can't, you can't let it stand as it is. And that's why I thought it was important to bring it up before it was a vote to say, instead of waiting for HCD, it's like, well, we already have the recommendations and the guidance. We're going to wait to see if maybe they get around to it. They're pretty busy. They may or may not ever get to it. So that's what was my whole point, was that I think the letter's pretty clear and the math is very clear also. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to members in chambers. Seeing none in chambers, we'll bring this back to council for a motion to move the item. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Very well. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
There are two items on the consent calendar that were pulled by Councilman Zara. Item number 7, we'll take that on first. It's professional service agreement with Yellow Cab. And since the council member was kind enough as to pull this, I will defer to him. Councilman Zara.
Yes, thank you very much. And I really appreciate our Parks and Rec moving forward with this. This is an important item to a lot of people, and I've had many discussions about it with many of our seniors. So I really am happy that this is coming back to us. But my question is, I know there was some concern about having taxi rides let's say, to go and do groceries and other things, that's not really part of it now, is it? Because one of the comments I've had in talking to people is that, well, we don't have a car, we don't always need to go to the recreation center, we don't always have to go to have medical transportation, but we always need to go to do grocery stores shopping and get food and essential items. Could this not be expanded at this point to include some of that?
Yes, we are actually looking to include shopping trips into this new contract with them as our third operations with them as well too. So it'd be trips to the community center, the non-medical and medical trips, and then also to the grocery store shopping trips.
Okay, at the same cost, because when I read this, it seemed a little vague about that.
Yes, we haven't gone further into exactly, but it should be the same exact prices that it is. Should be included to be free for them to go to the grocery stores or a small minimal fee. We haven't done the service plan for that, but we
Okay.
are looking to add it this year.
Do we have a timeline for it, or?
Sooner than later, yes.
All right. No, I appreciate that. That was my one concern, and I'm glad you clarified that. So thank you. Appreciate the work on this.
Okay.
All right, sir. If there's any public comments in chambers, seeing none, are there any in Zoom? All right, very good. Councilman Zara, if you'd
I
like
think
to make
Ms.
the motion.
Milton wanted to speak on this. She also requested to originally pull it.
She did. All right. Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Ms. Milton, good evening.
Good evening again. Allowing me to speak. Mazzara brought up a very important item about grocery shopping. The present situation is the bus allows you only to take one bag. Access is only one bag. And same-day taxi, which is a Fullerton gift, and that allows you one bag, plus if you have a satchel, you can fill that up. And the cost of going to the grocery or using that kind of transportation to have one bag of groceries is ridiculous. When I have more to do in my life because I'm slower than a three-toed sloth. When I go to the grocery store, I want to buy enough so I can be stocked up for a while and I don't have access to go. Just to give you an example, the last time I was able to get to Walmart was a year and a half ago. So, and it takes a lot of time and to go to the grocery store if we're allowed to get what we want. I mean, shop as long as we want, give a time, of course, to come back, but be able to buy as much as we want so we don't have to go every single day. And that, I just found out that this is something that they're considering. And I hope that the community center will bring that into mind, that we need something more than just one bag, because the cost of a same-day taxi is $3.60 each way plus tip, and the same thing with access, and that mounts up fast when you're on a limited income. And I thank you so very much for allowing me to speak, and I hope it helps, and I'm glad Councilman Zara brought this up. And they answered all of my questions that I had before, and so this is something new. And I thank you again so much, and I hope they consider allowing us to shop and buy as much as we'd like on a trip. Thank you.
Did you have concerns about number 9 as well, Ms. Milton? Don't go too far if you did. Councilman Zara?
Oh, yes, number 9.
Yes, please don't go far then.
Okay.
We'll get to that next. Councilman Zara, if you're welcome to make the motion to move this along. we
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I'm very, very happy to see this is a long time coming, so I will make the motion. Thank you.
All right, very good. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap. Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is number 9 on the consent calendar, also pulled by Councilman Zara. It's solar streetlight pilot project. So,
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor. I actually don't have any questions on this, but because this is such an ongoing issue throughout the city, I thought it would be wise to have it at least explained in public, so that people who are watching, I know there may be some people watching today or maybe tomorrow watch the video, to get a full picture of what the problem is and then what we're trying to do to fix it.
very good. Director McWade, can you answer a few of the councilman's concerns?
Certainly, the streetlight issue that is presented this evening really relates to series lighting. The city has about 7,000 streetlights that we own, of which about 3,500 are a series high voltage outdated type of system. We need to replace them. They were installed in the 50 to 70 years ago, depending on your neighborhood. And right now, there are no longer companies that will be making the transformers that power them. And so the city is seeking ways to respond to outages as they occur. Oftentimes, the outages are not related to the city's wiring and lights, however, are related to Edison's transformers. Edison is finding it more and more difficult to piece together these transformers and to have them operate the way they were intended to 50 years ago. So we are in the process of looking at various ways to address this issue. It will require a significant investment, so we're looking at, is there a way to borrow money? Is there a way for us to get some grant funds? But it is about a $35 to $40 million issue that has been coming for this council for decades. Again, it's an infrastructure issue that is unfortunately presented to this council, but certainly is not a making of this council. The solar streetlight project will allow us to take about 23 lights off of the Evergreen circuit, which has about 100, and try solar. The reason we can do solar in this area is because the tree canopy is fairly light, and Edison believes that it can power the remainder of these lights with another transformer. So that's the reason why we're going down this path. If it's successful, we'd be looking at doing it in other areas, because the cost of this is $3,000 to $4,000 per light, whereas the cost to replace with a full system is closer to $15,000 per light.
All right, Councilman Zara, anything further, sir, before we get to Ms. Milton?
No, I just one more follow-up question as far as the timeline for this, and when would this be implemented? When would we know, is it successful or not? And then when is is there a plan for the next series of lights in other areas?
So the goal would be to have these ordered, hopefully get council approval this evening, have them ordered. It will take probably 8 to 12 weeks to get them in, then another probably 2 weeks for installation and removal of the old lights. So we're looking at activation within 4 months on this particular series. Then ultimately we'll be evaluating it over the next year to year and a half. City of LA already installed some of these lights and have been doing testing. Separately, the City of Fullerton installed 3 of them. They've been in existence for us for about 3 years and actively working with no maintenance issues. We're hopeful that in this case it will be the same.
Would this be if it's successful over the next couple of years? Do you see this as a substitute for spending all the money and actually getting a full infrastructure replacement?
Part of the issue is one of the beautiful things about Fullerton is our tree canopy. So there are significant areas of the city where it just will not work, the solar lighting, unless we were to remove trees, which I don't think we'd want to change the aesthetic of the neighborhood. Additionally, there are some historic neighborhoods where this will not work. So we're going to be doing that analysis of where exactly could we deploy this.
But essentially it could cut the costs over the
It
overall.
could, yes, yes,
Okay.
sir. And we'd be looking to potentially get grants. Perhaps there's energy efficiency and other grants available to us. if
Is it
this
is it
proves
possible
successful.
to do the study in advance to cut some time to know what areas this certainly won't be applicable, and that way we can start looking for solutions for those areas?
That's a great point, and we're already looking to do that so that we can identify the maps and where other circuits could be activated with this same manner.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for this, and I'm certainly supportive.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Milton, good
My
evening.
one question was, what was the reason for waiving formal bidding, the formal bidding process?
And it's really when we went out to bid, when we originally had estimates, they're from 6 months ago, and prices were significantly different. We thought that they would be under the $50,000 limit. We went out to bid, they were not under that limit, and in order for us to activate formal bidding, it would probably be another 2 months. So instead of getting that neighborhood in lights, at least those 23, we'd be looking at 6 months rather than 4 months. And so it's not something we normally do, but in this case where the neighborhood's dark, we're looking to activate it sooner.
I can see that.
All right.
That was my one question.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
good. Are there any comments on Zoom? Seeing none in chambers, we'll bring it back to council.
I'll move the item.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
One additional comment,
Please,
if I may.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
This
please.
is something that I brought up to our Public Works Department, I think, about 9 years ago, where I had read extensively on much success with this in Australia, throughout areas of Australia. We have pretty similar conditions here to that. Maybe we have a little bit more of a tree canopy in some areas. But the idea of phasing these in just was a really good idea then, and it's even more so now because the technology has gotten better since then.
Oh, thank you for that, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
It's actually.
Please.
I have a question. Mayor Jung, council members, and Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker. I have a question in regards to this project. How long has Los Angeles been doing this, and has there been a switch out yet? Do we have any type of rate of refuse? Is there going to be an opportunity to maybe retrofit these as technology, or as we have, how long we're going to be able to get battery use out of these, or battery life out of these? So that's one of the things that we've discussed prior. Thank you.
Very good. Go ahead, Director McQuaid.
So the Bureau of Sanitation, or Bureau of Lighting in LA has been testing them for, I believe it's 2 years. I don't know that they've done a mass deployment like this, but they have been testing them and selecting the appropriate lights. And they're looking at, manufacturers claim anywhere from 7 to 10 years for battery prior to replacement. But we'll have to see when in actual circumstances what it looks like.
Very well. All right. So, Madam City Clerk, you have a first or a motion from Councilman Zara, second from Councilman Silva. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlop. Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
This concludes our scheduled meeting for this evening. Next meeting is Tuesday, July 19th, same bad time, same bad channel, folks. Good night.